Chapter 589. Xueqi looked at the old beggar and shrugged as he said, "I've been hearing this so much lately that my ears have grown calluses. Whether I'm prepared or not, I'll have to face it. I'm always prepared for any battle." The old beggar was moved by his eyes and said with a smile, "That's right. As my disciple, you can't be a coward." Xueqi smiled but did not reply. "Come on, you just kept pouring cold water on me." Xueqi could not help but complain, his tone filled with disdain. He couldn't stand the sight of the old beggar. In his eyes, the old immortal was more like Xueqi's teacher. At that moment, Xueqi took out demon god Tianwu, demon god Nanming, demon ancestor, and demon god Jihuang. The bodies of the four demon gods exuded a domineering aura. Their faces were ferocious and they exuded a boundless baleful aura. The old beggar's expression changed. He did not expect Xueqi to have already obtained 4 demon god clones. "Looks like you have a lot of secrets on you. To be able to refine 4 demon gods into doppelgangers, such a method is very rare," the old immortal said intently, while the old beggar was also sizing up Xueqi. Could it be that this kid had another master? This was the first time Xueqi had seen him take out 4 demon god bodies at once. The old immortal waved his right hand and a huge black cauldron appeared in front of him, causing Xueqi and the old beggar to retreat in shock. "Bring your avatar into the cauldron. It will be very painful. Of course, I believe you can endure it." The old immortal chuckled. His serious expression disappeared and he became kind again. Xueqi nodded and brought the 4 demon god clones into the cauldron. Xueqi sat down on the ground. The old beggar looked at the old deity and said, "We have already agreed on what happened before. Don't forget." With that, he turned around and prepared to leave. The old immortal stopped him and asked, "You don't care about Xueqi? He's also your disciple, and he's told me a lot about the interactions between the two of you. I can tell that he respects you a lot." Hearing this, the old beggar trembled and his body stiffened. He sighed and said, "I don't have a clone, so I'm really powerless. Moreover, you're here. You're equivalent to his master." With that, he left without hesitation. He had so many disciples, but during critical moments, he could only take care of one. Looking at him leave, Xueqi curled his lips and harumphed. "Didn't he just make master your disciple?" He could not understand why the old beggar would abandon Xueqi. Could there be other disciples more important than Xueqi? The old immortal shook his head and smiled. "He is indeed a good master. He is more suitable than me." The old beggar could communicate with his disciple with his true feelings, but he couldn't. In his eyes, everyone was equal, including Xueqi. He only felt that Xueqi had the potential to go to the Kunlun origin court. Xueqi glanced at the old immortal and muttered, "You don't mean it." Why did the old immortal not treat him as well as Xueqi? Xueqi and the 4 demon gods came to a place with many volcanoes. Thunderclouds covered the sky and torrential rain poured down. However, it was unable to extinguish the raging flames in the surroundings. The rain fell into the streams of lava and gave rise to bursts of charred smoke. Xueqi and the demon gods' bodies were hit by the rain, and he muttered, "This is the world within the cauldron?" He subconsciously looked at the intersecting magma rivers beside him. Could it be that he was going to use them to temper his body? At this moment, his expression changed. The rain became scalding hot. Even his powerful body turned red from the impact. If it were an ordinary person, he would have been melted instantly. He did not use his celestial energy to protect his body, but accepted the rain calmly. Since it was body tempering, how could he resist? The 4 demon gods' bodies did not move and accepted the rain quietly. Xueqi, fighting against destiny and the heavenly law is a path of no return for you. You will suffer unimaginable pain, and you might even face eternal loneliness. Remember, the more pain you can endure, the more power you will gain. The old immortal's voice resounded across the heavens and earth. It was majestic and indifferent, like the might of the heavens. Xueqi did not reply but engraved the old immortal's words in his heart. His black hair was drenched by the scalding rain. He sat down with his legs crossed and channeled the world Buddha art. The old immortal began to chant the great Tao's voice. The rain grew hotter. In a short while, Xueqi was covered in blood, and the 4 demon gods' bodies began to tear. Even with the great Tao's voice by his ears, Zhou Xuanji was still tortured by the extreme pain. He gritted his teeth and persevered. Outside the black cauldron, the old immortal sat on the doorsill and sighed faintly. He had once planned a perfect path for Zhou Xuanji's development. It was a pity that he did not divine Zhou Xuanji's fate. Senior, what are the chances of him defeating destiny? Qiu asked from the side. The old immortal was silent for a while before replying. If it were anyone else, there would be no chance. But if it's him, the chances are minuscule. Qiu was stunned and asked in astonishment, why? Minuscule sounded hopeless, but it represented a glimmer of hope. Because I believe in him. The old immortal smiled as he reminisced. He began to recall the time he spent with Zhou Xuanji. In the vast starry sky, old ancestor Hongshi and heavenly lord Xiantai stood opposite each other. Their faces were cold. The enemy is just outside, and you still want to fight among yourselves? Old ancestor Hongshi asked with a deep voice. His tone was filled with rage. Heavenly Lord Xiantai replied indifferently, I'm not satisfied until I destroy Wanshan Great Thousand. If you want to stop me, then I will remove your Heavenly Saint title. With one less Heavenly Saint, we will be stronger. Just when he finished speaking, a black hole appeared behind him, and a black silhouette stepped out slowly. That person looked exactly like Heavenly Lord Xiantai, but his body was pitch black like a shadow. Old ancestor Hongshi's expression changed drastically. You are using that power. He cried out in shock. Are you crazy? Heavenly Lord Xiantai laughed maniacally. Hongshi, can't you see it clearly? The heavenly law is about to be destroyed. 9 is the limit. Destiny has begun interfering, and everything will return to the cycle of reincarnation. The battle between the heavenly saints is our only chance of survival. After that, the entire starry sky turned into extreme darkness. Countless stars disappeared. Heavenly Venerable Xiantai split into countless clones that surrounded old ancestor Hongshi. The black silhouette grew taller quickly and looked down at old ancestor Hongshi. Old ancestor Hongshi took a deep breath. A gigantic red lion head formed above his head and roared furiously in the dark void. A golden beam of light shot out from the darkness at an extremely fast speed. Old ancestor Hongshi glanced over and was pleasantly surprised. The next second, his expression changed suddenly. He quickly dodged the golden beam's attack. Yangling, what are you trying to do? Old ancestor Hongshi roared furiously. His voice was trembling. Buddha Yangling came over on his lotus throne, radiating with boundless radiance. He stared at old ancestor Hongshi expressionlessly and said, Hongshi, you are too willful and reckless. You will die sooner or later. I am here to take your soul and reincarnate you in the next cycle. Old ancestor Hongshi almost exploded in anger. This guy dared to betray him. Chapter 590. In the face of Patriarch Hongshi's anger, Buddha Yangling shook his head. He quickly flew up. In the blink of an eye, he reached the same height as the black shadow. He looked down at old ancestor Hongshi and said, Hongshi, you are the heavenly saint who is the least like a heavenly saint. You do not meet the standards of the heavenly Tao's rules. I have advised you many times to not interfere with the matters of the masses, but you did not listen. Back then, nurturing saint contenders went against the heavenly Tao. Today, the celestial and I will join hands to exterminate you. If there is a next life, don't try to prove your Tao. You are only fit to be a mortal. After saying that, he raised his right hand and grabbed at ancestor Hongshi. Ancestor Hongshi was infuriated. He took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. If that was the case, then let's go all out and have a great battle. In the world of the Black Cauldron, Zhou Xuanji and the demon gods were still being battered by the scorching rain. At a glance, they looked like skeletons covered in flesh and blood, looking incredibly eerie. The old immortal's voice of the great Tao continued. Zhou Xuanji was already used to the pain. It could even be said that he was numb to it. His mind fell into an unprecedented state of tranquility. At this moment, a strong gust of wind suddenly came. Wind blades that were visible to the naked eye attacked his body, scraping away his flesh and causing him to frown slightly. Boundless spiritual energy gathered around him, along with all sorts of fragrant smells. After entering his body, his pain lessened slightly, and his flesh began to heal at a visible rate. He, who was originally numb, felt the pain again. What is worse than death? Right now he was. But he still persisted. He wasn't afraid of death, but he didn't want to die like this. What about the heavenly Tao? What about fate? Since they dared to let him die, then he would pierce through everything. He communicated with a sword spirit in his mind. Sword spirit, is this situation really unsolvable for me? The supreme legendary sword system was said to be formed by serendipity from the world's beginning. Perhaps it was because of it that Xueqi was banished by destiny. Swordmaster, are you afraid? The sword spirit asked. His tone was as emotionless as ever. Xueqi replied, I'm not afraid, but everything around me tells me that I will die for sure. I need confirmation. Although the old immortal was very calm, he could clearly tell that the old immortal also felt that he had a slim chance of survival. As for the old beggar, he might have already given up on him. He didn't blame the old beggar because he hadn't repaid him yet. For the old beggar, he also had the most important person. If it were Xueqi, if he could only choose one person to protect, he would choose Jiang Shui without hesitation. In the mortal world, no matter how high one's cultivation was, the word love was engraved in one's bones and heart. You are the sword emperor. No matter what danger you face, you will destroy it with one sword. If one sword is not enough, you will destroy it with 10,000 swords. If 10,000 swords are still not enough, you will use 1,000,000 swords. This is your original belief. Have you forgotten? The sword spirit replied. Its words made Xueqi open his eyes suddenly. The wind blade pierced towards his eyes. His purple eyes shone with a strange light. The wind blades melted as soon as they got close to his eyes. That's right. I don't need to care about what others think. Xueqi mumbled to himself. His tone became extremely determined. So what if it was fate? In the blink of an eye. 5 years passed. The Wanshan Great Thousand had already survived the apocalypse. All living beings were reproducing, and the various sects were also developing at their own pace. On this day, golden lotuses and countless red hairs suddenly rained down from the sky, covering the entire Wanshan Great Thousand. It was the same for all the mortal realms connected to Wanshan Great Thousand. The golden lotuses descended, and Hongshi fell. Out of the 8 heavenly law saints, another one was eliminated. In the forest, Si Mengyan and Xian Daoya looked up. What's going on? Another heavenly saint has fallen? Xian Daoya asked in astonishment. He had experienced the fall of a heavenly saint before, and it was the same vision. Si Mengyan's expression changed slightly, and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. He immediately understood who had fallen. Old ancestor Hongshi. How can it be? He's so powerful. How can he fall? Si Mengyan's chest heaved up and down. His eyes turned red instantly as though they were filled with blood. Old ancestor Hongshi would always protect the geniuses that he valued. It was the same for him and Xueqi. Seeing his reaction, Xian Daoya immediately understood. Old ancestor Hongshi has fallen. Could it be? Xian Daoya immediately thought of many possibilities, and his expression changed drastically. The heavenly saints were fighting among themselves. Now, there were only 7 heavenly saints left. At this moment, footsteps came from behind them. Xian Daoya turned around and cried out in shock with his eyes wide open. It's you! The person who came was a man wearing a black robe and a hood. He had a handsome face and strands of white hair. His eyes were deep, and there were 2 intersecting crescent moons between his brows. Xian Daoya, long time no see, he said with a smile. He turned to look at Si Mengyan and said with a smile, Hey, do you want to take revenge for old ancestor Hongshi? Do you want to become the next heavenly saint? Xian Daoya's expression changed. He was a little nervous. Si Mengyan turned to look at the black-robed man and asked, Who are you? He instinctively scanned the other party with his divine sense but realized that he could not see through him. My surname is Ren. As for my name, I have many. I like people to call me Ren Niming. The black-robed man said with a smile. His eyes sparkled, and he gave off a shrewd feeling. In the Black Cauldron's world, a stream of violet qi descended from the sky and entered Xueqi's body. He opened his eyes and said in shock, This is Heavenly Law Violet Qi. Why would another stream of Heavenly Law Violet Qi descend? This is old ancestor Hongsher's saint position. He gifted this heavenly law violet chi to you to give you a chance of survival. The old immortal's voice came. His tone was incredibly calm. What about him? Zhou Xuanji asked with a frown. Sage Dao Jing had only handed over the heavenly law violet chi after leaving Wanshan Great Thousand. Could it be that old ancestor Hongsher was going to follow in Sage Dao Jing's footsteps? He's already fallen. Zhou Xuanji's pupils contracted, as if he had heard wrongly. Fallen? How could it be? Even if he encountered Heavenly Lord Xiantai, they should be evenly matched. Between heavenly saints, it was impossible for them to kill each other in a one-on-one battle. Unless, old ancestor Hongsher was attacked by many heavenly saints. I don't know why he fell, but a catastrophe is coming, and even the heavenly saints have fallen. It seems that the danger you are facing is beyond your imagination, the old immortal continued. In other words, Zhou Xuanji would have to face all of the heavenly saints. Zhou Xuanji frowned even more. He did not have a good impression of old ancestor Hongsher, but this guy gave him the heavenly law violet chi before he fell, which made him feel bad. He took a deep breath and asked, "Is my body powerful enough?" 5 years passed. His body was constantly being reconstructed. The boiling rain, wind blades, magma, and billions of lightning bolts transformed his body. He did not know how powerful he was, but he could feel that he was reborn. Wait a little longer. You can contact your people and prepare to escape. The old immortal replied. These words made Zhou Xuanji's expression change slightly. He immediately closed his eyes and focused on the world in the lotus. Chapter 591. Emperor Sword Court and the Divine Cliff moved very quickly. Especially after hearing that the Heavenly Saint wanted to destroy the Wanshan Great Thousand, they were all afraid that they would fall behind. In the Black Cauldron's world, Zhou Xuanji used his consciousness to communicate with the world in the lotus while enduring the pain of body tempering. He could look down at the entire world in the lotus. The tens of millions of people had already begun to disperse and find their own places to cultivate. He had planted many natural treasures in the world in the lotus, and the spiritual chi was abundant. It was not inferior to the Wanshan Great Thousand. After confirming that the situation was stable, Zhou Xuanji continued to focus on tempering his body. While he was suffering, the Wanshan Great Thousand faced a catastrophe. He couldn't care less and didn't want to think about it anymore. Heavenly Venerable Xiantai floated above the sea of clouds as countless meteorites flew past him, smashing towards Wanshan Great Thousand. His face was expressionless and his eyes were indifferent. Behind him stood a black shadow whose facial features and figure were exactly the same as his. The black shadow asked, "What? Can't bear it?" Heavenly Lord Xiantai did not reply, but his eyes betrayed him. The enmity between him and Venerable Dao Jing should really be paid by the Wanshan Great Thousand? For some unknown reason, after old ancestor Hongsher's death, his heart began to soften, and he was no longer as ruthless as before. Sage Dao Jing and old ancestor Hongsher's heavenly law violet chi is on that person called Zhou Xuanji. Spread this news and make Wanshan Great Thousand fight among themselves. We can even spread this news to other Great Thousand worlds and make other heavenly saints and saint contenders fight over it. The black shadow continued. Hearing this, Heavenly Lord Xiantai nodded slightly. He did not hate Zhou Xuanji too much, but this would save Wanshan Great Thousand from being exterminated. Everyone, listen up. Zhou Xuanji has 2 heavenly law violet chi. If you obtain one, you can become a saint. Heavenly Lord Xuantia's voice resounded throughout the Wanshan Great Thousand. At the same time, the descending meteorites disappeared. As long as I become a saint, I can stand above all living beings and no longer be controlled by the catastrophe. His voice was very calm, causing the hearts of all living beings in the calamity to tremble. Sainthood. The next moment, the entire Wanshan Great Thousand was in an uproar. The Wanshan Great Thousand had been through so many hardships recently, and all the living beings were holding their breaths. They wanted to rise. They were no longer willing to wait for death and despair. Now, the Wanshan Great Thousand was in a frenzy to find Zhou Xuanji. Emperor Sword Court and Divine Cliff were the first to be targeted. Very soon, everyone discovered that Emperor Sword Court and the Divine Cliff had disappeared. Where did Emperor Sword Court go? Zhou Xuanji must have escaped. Damn it! He even said that he was going to use his sword to save the world. Utter bullshit. They must have left Wanshan Great Thousand. What do I do? My chance to become a sage is gone. For a time, the Center God province became the target of public criticism. Xueqi did not know about this, and even if he knew, he would not care. In front of the temple, Heavenly Lord Xuantia's sudden appearance startled Xueqi so much that he stood up. The old immortal was still sitting on the doorsill, calm and collected. He was not at all moved by Heavenly Lord Xuantia's arrival. You want to protect him? Heavenly Lord Xiantai asked expressionlessly. It was obvious that he knew the old immortal. The old immortal replied calmly, No, I'm just fulfilling my promise to him. He will come out soon. Heavenly Lord Xiantai narrowed his eyes and said, What exactly are you planning? The old immortal and the old beggar were still seniors to these heavenly saints. Even if he hadn't become a sage, Heavenly Lord Xiantai wouldn't have dared to act recklessly. It's not that I'm planning anything, but you are being schemed against. The old immortal smiled faintly. His words were like a knife that pierced Heavenly Lord Xuantia's heart. Schemed. Heavenly Lord Xuantia's expression changed drastically. When old ancestor Hongshi died, he sensed that something was amiss. He felt that everything was too strange. But there was a reason for it. It was because Sage Dao Jing provoked him that he was enraged. But why was he so vengeful? He even took revenge on the people of Wanshan Great Thousand. This was the demeanor of a heavenly saint. He took a deep breath and cupped his fist. Please enlighten me. Xueqi swallowed his saliva. A heavenly saint bowed to the old immortal. Domineering. Too domineering. The old immortal shook his head and said, Actually, you know what's going on. Who else can control a heavenly saint? Boom! A bolt of lightning descended. But when it neared the temple, it was blocked by a formless energy and dissipated in the air. Heavenly Lord Xiantai took a deep breath and immediately understood what he meant. Thank you. Heavenly Lord Xiantai left after saying this. In the blink of an eye, he left Wanshan Great Thousand. He could already feel fear. In the Black Cauldron's world, Xueqi was still undergoing the tempering of his body. Analyze that the sword owner has reached 356 years old. Gotcha started. Ding! Congratulations, the sword owner obtained Connecting Heaven's Sky Destroyer, Celestial Shaking, Hell God Sword. The sword spirit's voice resounded in his mind. He did not open his eyes but continued to cultivate. In 5 years, he had obtained 12 legendary swords. The highest grade was Connecting Heaven, and the lowest was Gold. Although they were not very helpful to his power, it was good to have a few more. Boom! He broke through to Connecting Heaven Level 3. The tempering of his body did not help his cultivation much, but he was already close to breaking through. In 5 years, I will let you out. The next 5 years will be truly painful. The old immortal's voice sounded in his ears. He did not even open his eyes. Pain was nothing to him. As long as he could become more powerful. Boom! At this moment, the ground shook violently. A horrifying pressure descended from the sky, and he looked up in shock. He saw a fiery glow in the sky. Billowing flames billowed out, shaking everyone's heart. At a glance, there was no end to the sea of flames. This is... Xueqi opened his eyes wide. He thought of a possibility, and his scalp turned numb. Boom! The boundless sea of flames descended suddenly, as though the sky had collapsed. The heavens and the earth merged together, covering Xueqi and the demon gods. The cauldron turned into a sea of flames that burned everything. Outside the cauldron, Xueqi looked at the black cauldron with cold sweat on his forehead. Is he really okay? He asked with gritted teeth. The black cauldron was visibly burned red, and the surrounding space was distorted from the heat. The old immortal said calmly, This is nirvana. If it were you, you would die but not him. Xueqi did not feel humiliated but worried for Xueqi. Gradually, thunderclouds gathered in the sky above the Taoist temple and surged ceaselessly. It was as though the end of the world was coming. The old immortal looked up and laughed softly. Seems like someone can no longer sit still. Xueqi looked up as well. He could sense an extremely powerful aura levitating above the Wanshan Great Thousand's 33 heavens. It was looking down at the world and observing the world. He frowned and asked, What's his cultivation stage? The old immortal replied, Saint Contenda. He's more powerful than you. Chapter 592. Above the 33rd heaven. A figure covered in raging flames stood proudly. His gaze was lowered as he looked left and right, as if he was searching for something. His face was also covered in flames. His crimson armor gave off a violent aura, making him look like a god of fire. What's going on? Why can't I sense the aura of the heavenly law violet chi? He mumbled to himself with a frown. He immediately swooped down and was prepared to check on Wanshan Great Thousand personally. Not long after he descended, another 3 people with horrifying auras descended. Xueqi is here. Humph. He dares to possess 2 heavenly law violet chi. That brat must be tired of living. Move faster, or someone else will get to him before us. The 3 silhouettes flew into the sea of clouds and disappeared. After a period of time, many powerful cultivators came to Wanshan Great Thousand. The heavenly law violet chi was too attractive. Who did not want to become a saint? Especially for those who stood at the pinnacle below the heavenly saints. The heavenly law violet chi was their biggest goal. An operation to capture Xueqi began in all heavens. In front of the temple, the old immortal got up slowly and said, "This is not a good place to stay." After that, he waved his sleeves and teleported Xueqi, the black cauldron, and the temple away. Xueqi opened his eyes again and found himself in the dark void. The old immortal and his temple were just beside him. The black cauldron, which was scorched red, was spinning in the void like a pendulum. The old immortal continued to meditate before the black cauldron and waited quietly. Xueqi wanted to say something but stopped himself. He wanted to help, but he realized that he did not even know how to say it. Don't be impatient. Calm your heart. This is his tribulation, not yours. The old immortal said with a calm tone. Xueqi could only try his best to calm himself down. In the Lotus World. On a cliff, Daoya Old Man sat facing the south. His hands were crossed over his legs. Jiang Shui and Zhou Shaoxian stood behind him and waited curiously. "Mother, do you think Grand Teacher can do it?" Zhou Shaoxian mumbled with a doubtful look. Daoya Old Man said that he wanted to change Xueqi's fate. He had been sitting here for a year, but he still could not change it. Jiang Shui said softly, "This is a token of his goodwill." Both mother and daughter addressed Daoya Old Man as Grandmaster, which was an order from him. At this moment, Daoya Old Man suddenly opened his eyes and sighed. "I overestimated myself." The current Xueqi was not someone he could change. Zhou Shaoxian comforted him. "It's okay. Haven't you always overestimated yourself?" Daoya Old Man's mouth twitched as he felt his liver ache. Jiang Shui glared at Zhou Shaoxian and smiled at Daoya Old Man. "Grandmaster, you should start cultivating now. You don't have to be afraid of the heavenly tribulation. After all, we are no longer in the northern wilderness region." "Cultivate?" Daoya Old Man fell into a trance. Zhou Shaoxian curled her lips and sighed. "I wonder how father is doing and how the outside world is doing." Every time she thought of how her father was still suffering, she felt terrible. Jiang Shui became worried when she heard this. She didn't notice that Zhou Shaoxian's eyes were glowing with a purple light. Zhou Shaoxian suddenly heard a voice. She frowned slightly but remained calm. In the blink of an eye, another 5 years passed. In the dark void, the old immortal opened his eyes, which were filled with vigor. He smiled and said, "It's finally done." Xueqi heard him and opened his eyes as well. The charred black cauldron shook violently, and a horrifying aura emanated from it. Boom! The black cauldron exploded suddenly, and a silhouette leaped out. His body was burning with flames, and his eyes were glowing with a purple light. Battle Path Flame Soul. It was Xueqi. The 4 demon god bodies had already fused with his body, which boosted his aura to the extreme. At this moment, he was like a peerless devil that charged out from the abyss. He quickly retracted the flames on the surface of his body and put on a white shirt. His black hair danced wildly, and one could vaguely see streaks of fire. Xueqi opened his eyes wide and cried out in shock. "Master, how powerful are you now?" He felt that Xueqi had completely transformed. Just his aura alone was enough to make him shudder. Xueqi looked calm. His figure and face did not look any different from before, but his eyes were emanating a dangerous aura. "I'm not sure, but I feel that my physical strength is enough to destroy everything." Zhou Xuanji replied with a smile. The old immortal frowned slightly and said, "The difference between becoming a saint and a demon is just a thought." Zhou Xuanji bowed to him and said, "Senior, can I go out now?" The old immortal narrowed his eyes and nodded lightly. Zhou Xuanji immediately disappeared. Qiu, who was stunned, and asked, "What is he trying to do?" The old immortal replied, "What will happen if you suffer endless pain in the cauldron?" Qiu, who opened his eyes wide and shuddered in fear. He hurriedly bowed and left as well. The old immortal shook his head and sighed. What a great destiny! On a mountain peak in Wanshan Great Thousand, Zhou Xuanji appeared out of nowhere and stood by the cliff, facing the wind. He was expressionless, and numerous legendary swords appeared around him. Qiu, who appeared beside him, and asked with gritted teeth, "Master, what are you trying to do?" Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, "Just wait and see." The 4 demon god bodies flew out from his body and stood around him. He exploded with his horrifying aura, shaking the heavens and earth. "I, Zhou Xuanji, am here. Whoever wants the heavenly law violet qi, come forth." Zhou Xuanji cried out. His voice resounded across the entire Wanshan Great Thousand. With the thunderclap sword in his right hand and the history asunder sword in his left, he maintained his explosive aura. "Master, are you crazy?" Qiu Hu said anxiously. "Your enemies are not just the living beings of Wanshan Great Thousand." Zhou Xuanji glanced at him and said, "So what?" Boom! The mountain under his feet trembled continuously as though it would crumble at any moment. Zhou Xuanji said coldly, "Since destiny wants to banish me, no matter who the enemy is, be it the heavenly saints or living beings, come and die." When he was tempering his body in the cauldron, he had already thought it through. He did not need to care about the so-called justice. If living beings wanted to destroy him, then he would destroy them. If the heavens wanted to destroy him, then he would destroy the heavens. So what if it was destiny? He would face it head-on. "All worlds, if you dare to harbor any malicious thoughts, die by my sword." His voice was filled with bone-chilling murderous intent, which sent chills down Qiu Hu's spine. Not only did Zhou Xuanji's body change, but even his mentality changed drastically. At this time, 2 peerlessly powerful auras flew over from the front. Without even looking, Zhou Xuanji slashed with the thunderclap sword. Billions of heavenly lightning weaved into a lightning net that connected the heavens and earth. It swept out and destroyed everything in its path. Before the 2 powerful cultivators could react, they were killed by the heavenly lightning. Both their bodies and souls were destroyed. They would never be able to reincarnate. A massive amount of magic energy entered Zhou Xuanji's body, causing his white robe to flutter violently. His purple eyes were extremely cold, like the eyes of the abyss behind the light. They contained boundless murderous intent. Chapter 593. Looking at Zhou Xuanji's back, Qiu Hu knew that he could not dissuade him. "Forget it. Let's go crazy with him." Qiu Hu gritted his teeth and sat down on the ground to cultivate. He wanted to see what Zhou Xuanji could do to this world. Zhou Xuanji began suppressing the magic energy in his body. He did not use the 9-soul fusion technique, but his body had already transformed, which was enough to suppress the violent magic energy that surged into his body. Since he was going to fight against destiny, he must try his best to become more powerful. Enemies were just perfect for him. Demon God Tianwu, Demon Ancestor, Demon God Nanming, and Demon God Jihuang stood around him like 4 iron towers. Each of them faced one direction and looked domineering. A while later, as the dust settled, countless silhouettes appeared. They were all demons and monsters with ferocious faces. They were scattered in every corner of the world and surrounded Zhou Xuanji and the others. "Zhou Xuanji, hand over 1 heavenly law violet qi, and we will let you go." A cold voice came. The demon emperor, who was wearing an emperor's robe, descended from the sky. 36 demon lords followed behind him, including Snake Lord Qingshi. All of them were above connecting heaven level 2. Together with the countless demon soldiers and demon generals, it was enough to scare anyone out of their wits. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes. His purple pupils locked onto the demon emperor and said softly, "Do you want to die?" Hearing him, the demon emperor's face darkened immediately. He did not attack Zhou Xuanji directly because he had worked with him before. But he did not expect Zhou Xuanji to ignore their friendship. Don't waste your breath on him. Snatch it. Humph. Holding 2 heavenly law violet chi alone. Aren't you afraid of bursting to death? This guy is too greedy. He almost brought destruction to the Wanshan Great Thousand. Kill him. Attack together. This guy is very powerful. The 36 demon lords spoke together. All of them held onto their enchanted artifacts and prepared for battle. The demon emperor raised his right hand and pointed his index finger at Xueqi. If so, Xueqi, he said coldly, don't blame us for not showing mercy. Boom! A horrifying bolt of purple lightning tore apart the thunderclouds and struck toward Xueqi. The lightning was imbued with destructive power. Xueqi quickly raised the thunderclap sword, and the 9 extreme legendary sword gave off a berserk suction force, directly absorbing the purple lightning. The demon Thearka's eyes widened, the 36 demon lords were also shocked, and the demon soldiers and demon generals in the distance were in an uproar. Impossible! That's the god-punishing thunder technique created by His Majesty the Demon God. Where did that sword come from? What a great sword, Emperor! No wonder he is so arrogant. Why do I have an ominous feeling? The demon army was a little flustered. Xueqi laughed condescendingly and said, a divine ability that descends from the sky, I have it too. He shook his right arm and used heavenly sword descent. Countless bolts of heavenly lightning erupted from the thunderclap sword and rose into the sky, condensing into many heavenly swords that fell down crazily. He had fused the primordial chaos sword shadow with the heavenly sword descent. Coupled with the terrifying power of the thunderclap sword, it was definitely a nightmarish killing power. The expressions of the beast the Arch and the 36 beast lords changed drastically as they gathered their magic power to create a light barrier to block the heaven sword. Boom! 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 The beast lords were destroyed in both body and soul by the heaven sword. It was a pitiful sight, and the demon soldiers and generals could not resist at all. The beast Thearka's magic barrier was also penetrated, but he reacted quickly and dodged quickly. After dodging one sword, there was still another. No! I must escape. The beast the Arch quickly made a decision to abandon the demon army and escape. Swish! An air-piercing sound came from behind him. Before the beast the Arch could turn around, his chest was pierced by the thunderclap sword, and heavenly lightning surrounded his body. Void instant kill. How is this possible? The beast Thearka's expression changed drastically. He could not believe his fate. What kind of divine ability was this? Wasn't it too fast? Following this, his magic energy was drained by the thunderclap sword, and his body turned into dust. His soul was locked in place by the thunderclap sword, and he could not break free at all. He looked back at Xueqi and cursed. Xueqi, are you really going to kill me? Xueqi's gaze was cold, and a mocking look appeared in his eyes. You want to kill me, but I'm not allowed to kill you? He raised his left hand and pointed his middle finger at the beast the Arch. The beast the Arch did not understand this gesture, and his soul dissipated. The 36 beast lords died as well. The demon soldiers and generals either died or escaped. Xueqi did not kill them all because there was no need to. The heavenly sword descent blasted the heavens and earth into chaos again. Dust billowed, and the light dimmed. It was like the beginning of the world, before the sun rose. Xueqi sat down and prepared to break through. Hundreds of legendary swords levitated above his head and circled around recklessly as though they were alive. Xuehu's face was filled with shock. Too powerful. Exterminating an entire race with one slash. Even someone as powerful as the beast the Arch could be destroyed with a flip of his hand. Not only that, but the 4 demon god clones had yet to act. Just how powerful is he? Xuehu thought to himself in a daze. He suddenly felt that Xueqi was not really crazy. When one was powerful to a certain extent, one could look down on everything. Far away, many cultivators were watching. When they saw what happened to the demons, they all retreated in fear. News of the beast the Arch and the 36 beast lords' death spread like wildfire across the Wanshan Great Thousand. Xueqi began to break through with the massive magic energy gathered by the demons. Connecting Heaven Level 4. His cultivation did not stop growing and continued to grow wildly. His body had already transformed and could withstand the unbridled growth of magic energy. Boom! A fiery fist that was tens of thousands of zhong in size struck from the front, as if the sun was crashing into them. Almost in an instant, Massive fiery fists came from 7 other directions, including the top of his head. The 8 massive fiery fists pressed forward, which frightened Xueqi so much that he got up immediately. The thunderclap sword trembled violently and exploded with countless bolts of heavenly lightning, which turned into a massive lightning net that engulfed the 8 fiery fists. The lightning net stirred the clouds in the sky, and the cities far away were all shocked. What's this? Lightning that covers the sky. Is the Sword Emperor fighting? Sword Emperor. God damn it, it's the Lightning Emperor. It's all heavenly lightning. It's 10,000 times more terrifying than the heavenly lightning I faced during my tribulation. The Sword Emperor is really enraged. Everyone was shocked. Just looking at the writhing lightning net in the sky made their scalps numb. A fiery silhouette pierced through the lightning net and charged toward Xueqi with unstoppable force. Humph! No wonder you are so arrogant. You have a saint's body and a heavenly saint's enchanted artifact. A voice filled with murderous intent resounded across the heavens and earth, revealing Xueqi's power to the world. Xueqi opened his eyes and looked over. In the dark sky, dust billowed like 10,000 dragons. A massive fireball appeared on the horizon like the approaching sun. It was majestic and majestic. He got up immediately. Even though the magic energy in his body was boiling and was not suitable for battle, he was not afraid. In the billowing flames, a godlike figure could be vaguely seen. My name is Divine Lord Blazing Sunday. It will be your greatest honor to die in my hands. The other party spoke again, and the massive fireball exploded. Countless fiery lines spread rapidly to both sides, trying to surround the mountain where Xueqi was. I have countless legendary swords. I have countless legendary swords. Chapter 594. Blazing Sun Immortal? Xueqi laughed disdainfully. He had heard such words countless times. The people who talked to him like that were all dead. Xueqi clicked his tongue in wonder. Blazing Sun Divine Lord, you are courting death. Do you understand? As the first tiger since the birth of the Heavenly Tao, he naturally knew the top powerhouses under the Heavenly Tao. Blazing Sun Monarch was one of the first living beings in the world. Inside the vast sea of fire, Celestial Lord Blazing Sun did not respond. The billowing sea of flames engulfed the heavens and the earth, surrounding Xueqi and the others, making them feel as if they were in a sea of flames. Xueqi's eyes focused, and countless illusory swords appeared out of nowhere. The tips of the swords pointed outwards and surrounded the mountain he was on. Great Chaos Sword Shadow. 10 billion sword projections appeared out of thin air, each less than half a meter away from the other. Before Sir God Blazing Sun could make a move, the primordial sword shadow moved first. Billions of sword shadows moved at the same time, so loud that even the deaf could hear, causing the surrounding space to shatter. The sea of flames was devoured by the void, and darkness spread from all directions. Xueqi raised the thunderclap sword and used ranged sword propelling. Whoosh! Celestial Lord Blazing Sun, who was hiding in the sea of fire, dodged subconsciously, but his body was still pierced by the thunderclap sword. This speed! When the flames dissipated, Blazing Sun Divine Lord looked horrified. He didn't panic and immediately used his divine ability. His body turned into flames and quickly exploded. He condensed his body again and came behind Xueqi. Dozens of red wings appeared on his back and pierced towards Xueqi like sharp blades. The 4 demon gods beside Xueqi simultaneously punched out. The fist wind gathered together and shattered the red wings. Boom! Xueqi broke through again and reached connecting heaven level 5. The demon race had so much magic power fused with his body. Even if a lot of it was consumed during the fusion process, it was still enough for him to continue breaking through. Xueqi turned around and looked at Divine Lord Blazing Sunday. His pupil eyes were filled with murderous intent. Blazing Sun Immortal, right? Although I don't know your background, it's no longer important. After saying that, he used Sword Sect Immortal Ghost Weep. Hundreds of divine swords shone with white light and spun at high speed. He walked toward Blazing Sun Immortal step by step, holding his sword with both hands. With a single sentence, he had changed from a defender to an aggressor. Divine Lord Blazing Sun was unhappy with his tone. With a furious roar, he transformed into a phoenix and charged toward Xueqi with an unstoppable force. Weak. Zhou Xuanji disdainfully laughed and directly unleashed Sword Dao rules. With a flash of the sword light, the phoenix was torn apart. It was as if the sun had exploded, and the impact was visible to the naked eye, causing waves to appear in the void. Celestial Lord Blazing Sun was sent flying while vomiting blood. Zhou Xuanji came up to him in one step, and the two of them were less than a meter apart. Their eyes met. Immortal Blazing Sun saw a pair of eyes full of anger. This fellow isn't conceited. He's angry. Emperor Blazing Sun was shocked and felt incredible. He finally understood Zhou Xuanji's intentions. This kid wanted to take revenge on the common people. Before he could even speak, the Sword Dao rules erupted once again, destroying his body and soul. A mighty figure of a generation had fallen here. In the vast thousand worlds, Blazing Sun Immortal had the same status as the Sun God. He was formed from a sun, and his cultivation was exceedingly high. From ancient times until now, he had rarely been defeated. Facing Zhou Xuanji this time, he was not a threat at all. Zhou Xuanji did not care about what Divine Lord Blazing Sun was thinking before he died. He turned and flew in a certain direction. Qiu Hu and the demon god clones hurriedly followed. This area had turned into a void and was isolated by Wanshan Great Thousand's power of heaven and earth. He did not intend to hide but continued to accept challenges openly. Qiu Hu flew to his side and sighed in amazement. "You're too powerful. I feel that you are the heavenly law's great tribulation, purposely purging the common people." Zhou Xuanji glanced at him with a faint smile. Qiu Hu thought that he did not understand and explained, "Each time a great tribulation comes, countless living beings die tragically. It seems to be because of the sins of some beings, but it's not. It's an inevitable rule of the heavenly law. Fate blinds people, giving birth to thoughts of revenge or abnormal ambitions." Zhou Xuanji rolled his eyes at him and said, "Who do you think I want to take revenge on? I didn't attack first." Qiu Hu heard him and felt that it made sense. But no matter how he looked at it, the current situation was a scene of a great tribulation. And Zhou Xuanji was the main character of the Great Tribulation. For the rest of their journey, they were attacked continuously. Zhou Xuanji crushed everything with his absolute power. Although his cultivation was growing, he did not break through. He was stuck at connecting heaven level 5. He was still waiting for Heavenly Lord Xuantie's arrival. But it was a pity that Heavenly Lord Xiantai had already left Wanshan Great Thousand. This day, they landed beside a surging river. The two sat down cross-legged while the 4 demon gods stood behind them. Qiu Hu could not stop laughing. He was still talking about a pitiful person who died under Zhou Xuanji's sword. "So funny?" Zhou Xuanji asked casually. He could not understand what this guy was laughing about. Qiu Hu burst out laughing. "Yeah. Didn't you see how he died? Ha 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 ha." He laughed louder and louder, as though his laughing acupoint was sealed. Zhou Xuanji suddenly looked in another direction. He saw 3 people walking toward him side by side. They were Ran Niming, Xian Daoya, and Si Mengyan. Xian Daoya was sweating nervously. Facing Zhou Xuanji's peripheral vision, he quickly dodged. Qiu Hu also noticed the 3 of them coming. "It's you." Qiu Hu's expression changed drastically. He got up immediately and locked his gaze on Ran Niming, as though he wanted to devour him. Ran Niming had a smile on his face, giving off a very sinister and evil feeling. "Qiu Hu, long time no see. This time, I'm going to give you a serendipity," Ran Niming said with a smile. Ran Niming smiled. As soon as he finished speaking, a huge fist stopped in front of him, less than 3 centimeters away from the bridge of his nose. The gust from the fist blew his hair backward. His expression did not change but continued to look at Qiu Hu with a smile. "I don't care what you are planning. Get lost." Qiu Hu said word by word. His voice was like thunder, and his fury soared to the sky. "Who is he?" Zhou Xuanji's voice came. Qiu Hu took a deep breath and stared at Ran Niming. "He's Ran Niming," he said with gritted teeth. "He's extremely cunning. He's always scheming to steal fate." Ran Niming avoided his fist and brushed past him as he walked towards Zhou Xuanji. "Sword Emperor, I admire you the most. Do you want to fight Heavenly Lord Xiantai together? Don't worry, I'm not interested in the Heavenly Law Violet Qi." Ran Niming asked Zhou Xuanji with a smile. He knew his place and stopped 15 meters away from Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji sized him up and realized that this guy was so profound that he could not see through his cultivation. What do you want? Zhou Xuanji asked indifferently. He wanted to deal with Heavenly Lord Xiantai and did not need anyone's help. Ran Niming smiled and said, I just want to see if you can defeat destiny and change the Heavenly Law's rules. He looked at Zhou Xuanji with a trace of fanaticism in his eyes, as though he was looking at a rare treasure. He continued to speak. I know why you were banished by destiny. So, do you want to work together? Mobile version of the fastest updated website. Chapter 595. I have a way to make you tell me directly. Why should I work with you? Zhou Xuanji looked askance at Ran Niming and said with a smile. His tone was relaxed and did not contain any murderous intent. Ran Niming was not nervous. He shook his head and said with a smile, You have your principles. I have no ill intentions toward you, so you will not attack me. Or else, what's the difference between you and those pitiful worms who died in the Great Tribulation? Principles could be laughable sometimes. It could even be said to be pathetic. But principles could keep one's heart firm and one's Tao more stable. Zhou Xuanji got up slowly and said, People who think they're smart die easily. He did not like it when people played tricks with him. It was as though he was a chess piece that could be manipulated. It was fine if it was a heavenly saint. At least he was powerful enough. Could this Ran Niming be a heavenly saint too? Zhou Xuanji walked toward him. His aura exploded and froze the river. Xian Daoya trembled in fear. Si Mengyan sized up Zhou Xuanji with interest. No wonder the old ancestor said that he's the most talented. Si Mengyan sighed in his heart. Zhou Xuanji gave him an extremely dangerous feeling. This meant that Zhou Xuanji had already surpassed him. How long had it been? This was terrifying. Any powerful cultivator in the same era as Zhou Xuanji would be a tragedy. So many geniuses had died in Zhou Xuanji's hands. Who would mention them now? If you kill me now, how will you face destiny? You don't even know where destiny is and who is the executor of destiny. I can erase this memory before you attack, Ran Niming said with a smile. Ran Niming said with a smile. He was not angered by Zhou Xuanji, nor was he afraid. Zhou Xuanji smiled and stopped walking. Tell me, what do you want? I'm not very patient, he said. He wanted to see if he could defeat destiny? Could it be any more fake? Did he think that he was the heavenly law that came down to watch a show? Ran Niming stopped smiling and said seriously, My name has already told you the answer. If you are willing to work with me, then follow me to the netherworld now. Zhou Xuanji understood the look in his eyes. It seemed that this guy had been played by destiny before. After some thought, he nodded in agreement. He looked at Xian Daoya and said, This guy is already your subordinate? Ran Niming smiled and said, Don't worry. He can answer whatever you want to ask. Of course, you'd better not kill him. He's still very useful. Xian Daoya sensed Zhou Xuanji's gaze and gave an awkward but polite smile. Qiuhu coldly snorted and said, Lord, be careful. This fellow loves to scheme against others. Ran Niming glanced at him and asked with a smile, Qiuhu, what did I plot against you? Back then, I helped you obtain so many treasures and even helped you join the great Emperor Dao court. But what have you ever repaid me for? I just left suddenly and didn't let you find me. Is that a scheme? Have you ever truly looked for me? Do you know if I ran away from you or if I ran into trouble? Have you ever sincerely helped me? Qiuhu was rendered speechless by his question. Thinking about it, Qiuhu's ears turned red. Let's go to the netherworld. On the way there, tell me why you want to go there. Zhou Xuanji said, interrupting their conversation. This helped Qiuhu walk out of his embarrassment. Ran Niming nodded and waved his right hand. A space crack appeared in front of him, and he stepped into it first. Zhou Xuanji stored all the demon god bodies into the Tianxia map and followed closely behind with Qiuhu. Xian Daoya and Si Mengyan followed at the back. They began passing through the yin-yang boundary. Your birth mother must have looked for you. Your banishment must have something to do with her. Let's go and find her first. The one who started the trouble should be the one who started it, Ran Niming said casually as he looked down. Why do you know so much about me? Zhou Xuanji asked. Ran Niming looked at him and said with a smile, Since you were born, I have been observing you. You have been hunted since you were young. If not for me, you would not have had it so easy. Think about it. How many times have you been ambushed by Great Zhou's pursuers in Great Zhou? Zhou Xuanji frowned and immediately understood. You are the one who altered the Northern Wilderness people's bloodline? Why did you do that? Ever since the Northern Wilderness people altered the bloodline, there were fewer and fewer great emperors in the world. Even the number of ascenders decreased. To deal with the demonic emperor, of course. If not for what I did, you would have been controlled by the demonic emperor, including your family. If that was the case, the demonic emperor did not even need to do it himself. With just a thought, he could make you all walk up to him and be at his mercy. Ran Niming shrugged his shoulders and replied, I don't like this guy. He was a pitiful worm, weak and petty. If not for him giving up his heart and submitting to fate, how could he have become who he is today? His tone was filled with disdain when he mentioned the demonic emperor. I purposely left behind a rumor to let people know that the person who altered the Northern Wilderness bloodline was surnamed Ren. This was to warn the demonic emperor. This was also the reason why the demonic emperor did not dare to enter the Northern Wilderness again. At this point, Ran Niming burst out in laughter, feeling very carefree. Zhou Xuanji was even more curious about him. This person could play the demonic emperor in the palm of his hand. Could he be a saint? Or could he be like the old immortal and the old beggar, who came from a higher realm? Ran Niming looked at Xian Daoya and said with a smile, This guy is trying to imitate me, which is why there is Daoya old man. But it's a pity that he is not capable enough to control the situation. The biggest difference between me and him is that I will not interfere with you. I give you space to grow, while he wants to use you too early. Zhou Xuanji laughed coldly. Too early? You mean you want to use me too? Ran Niming shook his head again and looked at Zhou Xuanji with a passionate gaze. You came from outside the heavenly law. Back then I saw that light clearly. It was I who guided you to be born in the Northern Wilderness region, hoping that you could live a better life and avoid the suffering of the world. But it's a pity that people's hearts are unpredictable. The women in the mortal realm are really cruel. After that, you were thrown into the river, and it was me who moved you to your wife. Your wife's background is not simple. I seized a great serendipity for you in advance, and one day, this serendipity will save your life. Zhou Xuanji frowned and became wary of Ran Niming. This guy had done so many things for him. From the looks of it, wasn't he Ran Niming's chess piece? And that light should be the supreme legendary sword system. Qiu Hu, Si Mengyan, and Xian Daoya were silent. They were not surprised because Ran Niming could do it. Qiu Hu and Xian Daoya were supported by him. Back then, the demonic emperor wanted to do it too, but Ran Niming looked down on him. Don't think too much. I don't want you to repay me. I know that as long as you don't die, you will go to a wider world sooner or later. The heavenly law is not your goal. Back then, I helped you because I wanted you to help me defeat destiny. But I did not expect destiny to find you first. This is really interesting, Ran Niming laughed sinisterly. His eyes were filled with extreme murderous intent. Qiu Hu could not help but ask, What did destiny do to you? Chapter 596. Xian Daoya and Si Mengyan also looked at Ran Niming curiously. Si Mengyan didn't know much about Ran Niming, and only felt that he was unfathomable. However, from the conversation just now, this fellow was far more than that. Ran Niming took a deep breath and said, Destiny controls all living beings and everything. The way of heaven is the same. One is in the dark, and the other is in the light. Don't you think that the two rules have the same goal? Everyone frowned. This sentence was extremely terrifying. Fate is the heavenly Tao? The supreme, emotionless heavenly Tao had always wanted to control and manipulate all living beings. It nurtured all living beings and decided the life and ending of every living being? The heavenly Tao will subconsciously eliminate existences that pose a threat to itself, but it is unable to eliminate destiny. It even allows destiny to grow. This is the reason why great tribulations occur regularly. It's not that the heavenly Tao is protecting itself, but destiny is weakening the heavenly Tao. As for you, the heavenly laws approve of you and are even willing to let you become a heavenly saint. However, you make destiny feel threatened, so destiny wants to control all life to eliminate you. Destiny is not as honorable as the heavenly laws. It will continuously change the will of all life until it kills you. Speaking of this, Ran Niming sighed. Zhou Xuanji and the others listened in silence. Xian Daoya and Qiu who were dumbfounded. All along, they had thought that the heavenly Tao and destiny coexisted. The heavenly Tao was like the main rule, and fate was just a product of karma. I was originally fate, but it's a pity that I wanted to surpass the heavenly Tao and was suppressed by the heavenly Tao. My consciousness was lucky enough to be reincarnated. I originally wanted to regain control of fate, but I didn't expect fate to reject me. From now on, I'm no longer fate, just a mortal wandering the heavens. Ran Niming said something shocking again, and this time, even Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes wide. This kind of rule that was above all living beings could produce a consciousness? Their blood ran cold. Didn't that mean that the heavenly Tao could also have a consciousness? At the same time, they also understood why Ren Niming hated fate so much. This was equivalent to a cultivator being forced to leave his body. When he tried to return to his body, he discovered that his body had given birth to another consciousness that rejected him. What would he think? This feeling was like being possessed. It was even scarier than possession. Possession was at least an enemy, and this kind of situation was similar to schizophrenia. Just as everyone was deep in thought, they entered the netherworld. Ran Niming smiled and said, "You'd better not spread what we just said. Otherwise, all of us will be in trouble." Xian Daoya and Qiu who nodded in agreement. They looked at Ran Niming with awe. The person in front of him was an existence of laws that competed against the heavenly Tao. With Niming leading the way, everyone quickly disappeared into the dark horizon. Lady Zhao Xian, dressed in black, sat by the yellow springs. She gazed at the yellow springs, lost in thought. It was like Chang'e in the Moon Palace, looking at the mortal world. After a while, 5 figures landed behind her. It was Zhou Xuanji, Qiu Hu, Ran Niming, Xian Daoya, and Si Mengyan. Looking at Lady Zhao Xian's back, Zhou Xuanji's gaze was complicated. He could not forget the look in Lady Zhao Xian's eyes when she threw him into the river. They were filled with reluctance, pain, and deep love. Hundreds of years later, they met again in the netherworld, but the mother and son were estranged by fate. Zhou Xuanji had many questions he wanted to ask, but they were all stuck at the tip of his tongue. He didn't know what to ask. Lady Zhao Xian sensed something and looked back in confusion. Seeing Zhou Xuanji and the others, she was given a big fright and hurriedly got up. She placed her right hand in front of her chest and asked warily, "Who are you?" In her eyes, the aura of a living person was like a sun, giving off light. Zhou Xuanji frowned. She didn't recognize him? Qiu Hu said grumpily, "Your son is right in front of you and you don't recognize him?" They all knew that Lady Zhao Xian had sent a message to Zhou Xuanji's daughter, which meant that she had been secretly observing Zhou Xuanji. Lady Zhao Xian looked at Zhou Xuanji and said in shock, "You're Xuanji." Her eyes widened and she hurriedly walked over to Zhou Xuanji and grabbed his arm as she cried out, "Aya, how did you die so quickly? And you're so big? Could it be that the time between the yin and yang realms is really different?" Her words caused everyone to feel quite confused. Ren Niming frowned and looked around. Zhou Xuanji asked, "Mother, do you really not remember? You even went to find my daughter." Lady Zhao Xian cried out in delight. "You have a daughter? Is she pretty? Is your wife pretty? How many women do you have? Are they true to you? Are there any conflicts between the first and second branches? Does the youngest wife often act coquettishly towards you?" Zhou Xuanji felt speechless and cold sweat appeared on his forehead. Lady Zhao Xian was exactly the same as in his memories. Apart from that disaster when she was alive, she had always been this carefree and careless in the palace. It was because of this that Emperor Yan of Zhou liked her so much. Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji understood. Lady Zhao Xian had always been here, and her memories were most likely only a few years old, or even less. She had never thought that Zhou Xuanji would have already grown up. In that case, who was the person who had gone to find Zhou Xiaoxian? As he replied to Lady Zhao Xian, he thought to himself. After hearing about Jiang Shui, Lady Zhao Xian was so moved that her eyes became red. Knowing that there was a girl like her taking care of Zhou Xuanji, she felt much more pleased. When she heard about Xian Xianghua, she had been very worried, but after hearing that Xian Xianghua was willing to risk everything for him, she had smiled. Too few. Find a few more women. Find some ordinary ones, as long as they're pretty. They can satisfy you and won't threaten you, Lady Zhao Xian said. Lady Zhao Xian warned, not noticing the strange gazes of the others. Zhou Xuanji sighed and said, Mother, we can talk about these things in the future. I'm in trouble now. Someone is pretending to be you and plotting against me. Hearing this, Lady Zhao Xian's eyes widened and she cried out in shock. Who? At that moment, Ren Niming walked over and said, This is a trap. Prepare to fight. His expression was a bit cold. It had always been him plotting against others, and he hated it the most when others plotted against him. A trap? Everyone was greatly shocked, and even Lady Zhao Xian was given a big fright. Ren Niming, you're as sharp as ever. A voice suddenly sounded out, causing them to look left and right, but they could not find the owner of the voice. The yellow spring started to roil as a majestic figure slowly rose up. It was a Buddha statue that looked like it was made of black iron. It sat on a lotus throne and was 300 meters tall. He floated in the air and opened his eyes, looking incredibly shocked. Ninth Nether Buddha, Qiuhu said as he gritted his teeth, looking incredibly wary. Ninth Nether Buddha, the master of the netherworld. His status was equivalent to the heavenly saint. As long as the netherworld was not destroyed, he would not die. Of course, his strength was still inferior to the heavenly saint. Did you arrange all of this? Ren Niming asked, his gaze cold. Ninth Nether Buddha first looked at Zhou Xuanji before looking at him and saying, That's not important. This boy threatens the order of the heavenly law and must be eliminated. If you want to help him, this seat will let you reincarnate again. Hearing this, Lady Zhao Xian became terrified and hurriedly knelt down as she cried out, Buddha, don't kill my son. What crimes did he commit? I can atone for him. Chapter 597. Ninth Nether Buddha looked at Lady Zhao Xian and said, His sins are not something you can repay. You are already dead, and your fate with him has come to an end. When he falls, you can also reincarnate and no longer be implicated by him. A bell suddenly rang, resounding throughout the netherworld. The rolling black clouds in the sky parted, and rays of golden light shone down. Ren Niming took a step forward and asked, Ninth Nether Buddha, since you've already defeated us, can you tell us what's going on? Ninth Nether Buddha looked at him and said, That Zhao Xian you speak of is a chess piece that I sent to let Zhou Xuanji know that Zhao Xian is still alive and lure you out. With how you do things, you will definitely use this opportunity to win over Zhou Xuanji and bring him to the netherworld. Ren Niming narrowed his eyes and his face darkened. The others looked at the rays of golden light above them. They all sensed danger. Lady Zhao Xian knew that it was because of her that Zhou Xuanji had come down, and she felt incredibly guilty. She sat on the ground, looking as if she had lost her soul. Zhou Xuanji did not bother to comfort her. He looked up at Ninth Nether Buddha and asked, Were you ordered by destiny? He was very curious as to why the Ninth Nether Buddha was targeting him. Fate is just a rule. Your existence has allowed me to see what might happen in the future. Ninth Nether Buddha replied calmly. He raised his left palm and prepared to attack. The surroundings of the netherworld suddenly changed. It was replaced by a dark void. The Ninth Nether Buddha knew that there would be a huge battle, so he used a barrier to isolate himself from the Yin realm. This way, he could prevent the Yin realm from being destroyed. Ren Niming looked at Zhou Xuanji and said, Looks like it's not as deep as we thought. Destroy him. Even though he will not die as long as the netherworld is not destroyed, every time he dies, his strength will decrease. A strange smile appeared on his face. Ninth Nether Buddha narrowed his eyes, and under his gaze, Zhou Xuanji took out hundreds of swords and unleashed Sword Sect Immortal Ghost Weep, stepping into the sky. Lady Zhao Xian looked at Zhou Xuanji in a daze and instinctively raised her hand to stop him. However, sensing Zhou Xuanji's powerful aura, she could not bring herself to say anything. He's already this strong. Lady Zhao Xian's eyes blurred as she thought to herself. She sank into confusion once more. How much time has passed in the mortal realm? The Ninth Nether Buddha asked. Where did you come from? It was impossible to divine Zhou Xuanji's roots. There were no records of it in the netherworld either. It was as if he had appeared out of thin air. In just a few hundred years, he had become so powerful that he could terrify all the worlds in the universe. Zhou Xuanji smiled and immediately activated the primordial chaos sword shadow. 10 billion sword shadows appeared out of thin air, densely packed and occupying the entire void. The sword tips were all pointed at the ninth Nether Buddha. This. Lady Zhao Xian's eyes widened in surprise. This was the first time she had seen such a divine ability. She suddenly understood why the ninth Nether Buddha wanted to take action personally. Shill. 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 Swoosh. 10 billion sword shadows charged toward the ninth Nether Buddha in unison, shaking the void. It was like countless shooting stars had transformed into a vast ocean that swept out. Amit Ba. Ninth Nether Buddhist ancestor chanted, and golden Buddhist runes appeared around him. They spun rapidly, forming a huge golden barrier that blocked the attacks of the primordial chaos sword shadows. The sound of an explosion suddenly rang out, and a bright light shone in the void. Ninth Nether Buddha slightly frowned. He found that he had underestimated Xueqi. What powerful magic power! That sword! His gaze locked onto the thunderclap sword. It was definitely a Sky Sage-level Dharma treasure. Could it be that a heavenly saint was supporting Xueqi? At this moment, Xueqi charged over on a river of swords. Ninth Nether Buddha's forehead suddenly split open and a blood-red eye appeared. Countless ghosts flew out, roaring as they rushed towards Xueqi. Resentment soared to the sky. 10,000 ghosts howl. Xueqi's expression did not change. Heavenly lightning protected his body, destroying the ghosts one after another. He was unstoppable. He quickly arrived in front of ninth Nether Buddhist ancestor. His eyes were cold as he attacked with Sword Dao rules. Bang! The ninth Nether Buddha was directly shattered by the Sword Dao rules, and the surrounding golden Buddhist runes dissipated. Even ordinary heavenly saints might not be able to take the 9 extreme divine sword and Sword Dao rules head-on, let alone the ninth Nether Buddha, who was only a false sage. This scene moved Lady Zhao Xian, Xian Daoya, and Si Mengyan. So powerful. In front of Xueqi, ninth Nether Buddha couldn't even block a single sword strike. Magic energy surged into Xueqi's body, and the smile on his face became savage. So what if he was the lord of the underworld? He still couldn't block his sword. Ren Niming smiled and muttered, "Not bad, looks like there's a lot of hope." What he cared about was Xueqi's rate of growth. In another 100 years, what kind of strength would Xueqi have? At that moment, a nether wind swept over from the void, quickly condensing a body. Ninth Nether Buddha once again appeared. This time, his expression was incredibly unsightly. He furiously looked at Xueqi and said in a low voice, "Just who is standing behind you?" His physical body had actually been destroyed by an existence of reaching heaven state level 5. A crack had appeared on his rock-solid mental state. "I'll give you a chance to kneel and admit your wrongs, or else I'll kill you again and again. Let's see who can last longer," Xueqi said calmly as he looked at him. Since ninth Nether Buddha wanted to destroy him, he would not give him any face. Ninth Nether Buddha was so angry that he laughed and said coldly, "Do you really think you're invincible?" As he spoke, the space behind him twisted into a vortex and a pair of terrifying red eyes appeared. In front of it, ninth Nether Buddha was as small as an ant. Qiuhu and the others all looked up, looking at the red eyes that were rapidly growing larger. "What is that?" Si Mengyan muttered to himself, a look of terror in his eyes. Seeing this pair of eyes, their hairs stood on end. Even Xueqi felt this way. That's the eyes of reincarnation. Be careful, if you're devoured by it, you'll forever be lost outside of reincarnation. You won't be able to die or be destroyed, but you won't be able to see any hope. Ren Niming's voice sounded out, causing Xueqi to feel even more wary. Ninth Nether Buddha stared at Xueqi and said coldly, "I'll give you another chance. If you surrender and I cripple your magic energy, I can give you a chance to live. After your sins are eliminated, you'll have hope of reincarnation." Hearing this, Xueqi laughed. Before, he had said that he was going to kill him, and now he was going to give him a chance to live. Xueqi activated the Battle Path Flame Soul and his aura exploded out as he once again slashed out. Sword Dao rules. Sword light flashed out and ninth Nether Buddha's expression fell as he was once again destroyed. The sword chi slammed into the eyes of reincarnation, but it was absorbed by them and disappeared. "Let's retreat for now," Ren Niming called out. The eyes of reincarnation were simply too dangerous, and they had to stay far away from them. Xueqi did not act rashly and quickly returned to Lady Zhaoxuan's side and left with her. The group tore open space and disappeared without a trace. Just as they left, ninth Nether Buddha reformed his body. His expression was incredibly dark, and he found it difficult to suppress his fury. The eyes of reincarnation behind him disappeared, fusing with the darkness. Chapter 598. Zhou Xuanji and the others returned to the netherworld. They did not directly leave because Lady Zhao Xian was only a soul. If she left the netherworld, her soul would scatter. Her soul is not simple. It seems to be entangled by some kind of power. Even if it attaches itself to the magical equipment, it cannot leave the netherworld. Ran Niming touched his chin and muttered. He was now very curious about Lady Zhao Xian. He had a feeling that the ninth Nether Buddha was hiding something. Lady Zhao Xuan's face was pale, and she tightly gripped Zhou Xuanji's wrist as she said, "Son, don't worry about me. You can go." Although Zhou Xuanji was very powerful, the eyes of reincarnation were too terrifying. Together with Ran Niming's description, she did not want to be a burden to Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and said, "Since you're here, then think of a way to leave together. Don't you want to see your granddaughter?" Lady Zhao Xian hesitated. She indeed wanted to leave, but she did not want to drag Zhou Xuanji down because of her. Zhou Xuanji looked at Ran Niming and said, "What are you waiting for?" He would not revere Ran Niming just because of his identity. The two of them were in a cooperative relationship. So far, other than helping to find Lady Zhao Xian, Ran Niming had not provided any other substantial help. Ran Niming frowned and said, "If that's the case, then let's investigate the secrets of the underworld." Xueqi asked curiously, "What secret? Could it be that fate is controlling the netherworld?" Xian Daoya closed his eyes and began to calculate with his fingers. Puffed. He spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed to the ground. Ran Niming looked down at him and said, "How can you predict fate and reincarnation?" Si Mengyan asked, "Does the ninth Nether Buddha have the support of a heavenly saint?" With the power he displayed, he is no match for Zhou Xuanji at all, but he is still angry. This means that he is fearless, which is illogical. Ran Niming nodded and said, "Seems like we can only go to that place." The look in his eyes deepened. "Where to?" Xueqi asked curiously. With Zhou Xuanji around, he was not afraid of danger at all. He even felt that Zhou Xuanji already had the power to rival heavenly saints. "Follow me." Ran Niming turned and flew in one direction, and the others could only follow him. On the way, Lady Zhao Xian asked Zhou Xuanji about his experiences growing up. He didn't hide anything and started telling the story from the moment the mother and son separated. Hearing that the empress had died in Zhou Xuanji's hands, Lady Zhao Xian felt delighted and even laughed out loud. However, when she heard that Zhou Xuanji had killed Zhou Yalong when Emperor Yan of Zhou ascended, causing Emperor Yan of Zhou to lose face, her expression became complicated. She could blame many people, but she could not blame Emperor Yan of Zhou. When Emperor Yan of Zhou was in the imperial palace, she had been greatly pampered. For her, Emperor Yan of Zhou could even tolerate Zhou Xuanji killing the empress. She sighed faintly. Zhou Xuanji pretended not to hear and continued. Xian Daoya, Xueqi, and Si Mengyan were also listening. They also wanted to know how Zhou Xuanji had grown. After that, Zhou Xuanji began to sweep across the northern wilderness region and challenge the heavenly hall. He had escaped death time and time again, saved the world time and time again, and came to the Wanshan Great Thousand. Hearing this, they sighed with emotion. It had not been easy for Zhou Xuanji to come this far. It could even be said that he had always been bullied. Now, fate was actually banishing him. How laughable. 6 hours later, they came to the top of a cliff. Ahead of them was a thick fog, and the light was dim. There was not a single ghost within a radius of 100 miles. "What is this place?" Si Mengyan asked curiously. He had been to the netherworld before, but it was too big, and he had not been to many places. Ran Niming replied, "This is the source of the Yellow Springs. New souls are born here, and they follow the river to the 6 paths of reincarnation to be reincarnated. Not everyone had a past life, and some souls were just born. After all, souls would dissipate. If souls only decreased and did not increase, the world would have been deserted long ago." "What are we doing here?" Xueqi asked. At the same time, he walked to the edge of the cliff and looked down, but he could not see the bottom. Ran Niming looked around and said, "Any soul can be cleansed here, but we must be careful. Perhaps the 9th Nether Buddha is already nearby. Xueqi waved his right hand, and the 4 demon gods flew out in different directions, each guarding an area. What's the price of cleansing a soul? Lady Zhaoxian asked hesitantly. She felt that everything had its pros and cons. Ran Niming shrugged and said, just like reincarnation. Forget your past life, and be a new person in the next life. Lady Zhaoxian heard him and immediately frowned. It had been so difficult for her to see her son, and she was going to reincarnate just like that? Xueqi did not say anything. He did not want to influence Lady Zhaoxian's decision. There seems to be some movement from the yellow springs below. Qiu suddenly called out, causing Xian Daoya and Si Mengyan to go over to take a look. Ran Niming walked to the edge of the cliff and looked down as he muttered, Destiny is starting to play tricks. Hearing this, everyone felt a bad premonition. Destiny was incredibly mysterious, and before, they did not believe in it. However, after hearing from Ran Niming that destiny had its own consciousness, how could they not be afraid? Boom! The yellow spring suddenly exploded as a massive object rose up from the cliff, stirring up dense fog. Everyone looked over and saw a stone pillar rising up. It was over 300 meters wide, and there were all sorts of runes engraved on it. There were also many talismans stuck on it, and they fluttered in the wind, giving off rustling sounds. What is this? Qiu looked up at the stone pillar and asked in shock. Ran Niming's expression was complicated as he said, Yellow Springs Pillar, it's a trap. He turned to look at Xueqi and continued to say, the Yellow Springs Pillar is the Netherworld's greatest serendipity, and it only appears once in millions of years. Do you think it appeared because of you? Xueqi understood what he meant. Destiny was baiting him. Yellow Springs Pillar. It said that if you climb up the Yellow Springs Pillar, you can obtain reincarnation power and transcend life and death. Unless the enemy is a heavenly saint, you will never die. What's important is that you can revive anyone you want on the Yellow Springs Pillar, Xian Daoya said gloomily, a trace of fear in his eyes. There was a trace of fear in his eyes. This was too goddamned horrifying. Whatever they wanted, it would appear. What's more, it was a serendipity that only appeared once in millions of years. Wasn't this clearly trying to con them? What's more, the temptation was simply too great. Xueqi looked at Lady Zhaoxian and said, Are you ready? Lady Zhaoxian felt quite startled and asked hesitantly, It's not a trap? No matter how big a trap it is, for you, I'll go. Moreover, there are traps everywhere we go. We have no other choice, Xueqi replied. Xueqi replied. After speaking, he grabbed Lady Zhaoxian's wrist and pulled her up, flying up the Yellow Springs Pillar. Ran Niming and Qiu followed closely behind. Si Mengyan pushed Xian Daoya and followed. Oh. Are you crazy? Xian Daoya almost broke down. These were a bunch of madmen. Although he cursed, he still obediently followed, afraid that he would lose them. Chapter 599. The Yellow Springs Pillar was very tall, and Xueqi and the others flew up incredibly quickly. But they soon realized that the Yellow Springs Pillar seemed to have no end. Don't waver. If you stop, you might be consigned to eternal damnation. Ran Niming's voice sounded in everyone's ears, scaring Xian Daoya. The others were very determined. Now that things had come to this, they had no way out. Xueqi wanted to revive Lady Zhaoxian. Qiu swore to follow Xueqi with his life. Si Mengyan wanted to avenge old ancestor Hongshi. Ran Niming wanted to become Fate again. Only Xian Daoya was lacking in confidence. I just left the great Emperor Dao court and fell into another trap. Xian Daoya's liver hurt, and his heart was full of regret. After flying for an unknown period of time, Xueqi suddenly broke through a formless barrier. Following this, their surroundings changed, and they came to a starry sky. There was a stone stage in front of them, and there was a rainbow light around it. Lady Zhaoxian was extremely nervous. She carefully looked around, afraid that 9th Nether Buddha would launch another surprise attack. Soon, they all landed on the stone platform. Be careful, Ran Niming reminded. Everyone scattered at the edge of the stone platform, being cautious. This stone platform was not big, only about 5 feet in radius. There was nothing on the stone platform. It was empty. The seven-colored light around the stone platform was still swirling freely like a phantom. Where is the reincarnation power? Xueqi asked. He could not see anything, nor could he use his divine sense to capture anything. Ran Niming also walked on the edge of the stone platform and did not answer. Crack. The sound of a mechanism activating rang out, and a stone pillar with a diameter of 1/2 meter rose from the center of the stone platform. The surface of the stone pillar began to peel off, and soon, a stone statue was revealed. This stone statue was very strange. It looked like a monkey. Xueqi frowned immediately. Why did he feel that this stone monkey looked so much like the primordial ancestor statue? He instantly thought of many possibilities. He subconsciously reached out to touch his eyes. Don't tell me that time was also. Xueqi felt a chill down his spine, and his entire body gave off a dangerous aura. Ran Niming noticed his expression and said, "Don't think too much about it. It's fate when seemingly impossible things are connected." Xueqi took a deep breath and nodded slightly. The stone monkey suddenly opened its eyes and said, "Do you guys want to accept the test of reincarnation?" As soon as he said that, everyone was shocked. "Who are you?" Xueqi asked nervously. The others were also ready to fight. The stone monkey didn't reply. It just stared with a pair of empty eyes. Ran Niming looked at Xueqi and said, "Do you dare to go up?" Xueqi immediately walked up to the stone monkey. He looked at it and asked, "If I accept the reincarnation power, can I revive people?" The others were also secretly nervous. "Sure, but you need to pay a price." The stone monkey replied, its voice cold and emotionless. Hearing this, Lady Xiaoxian hurriedly stepped forward and asked, "What price?" Her hands were clenched so tightly that her palms were sweating. The stone monkey said, "In order to revive you, countless living beings in the 10,000 worlds will have to be sacrificed." Lady Xiaoxian widened her beautiful eyes and scolded, "Are you joking? Are you really a god?" The expressions of the others became strange. Xueqi spat on the stone monkey's face and cursed, "You dog, so you were waiting for us here." If Xueqi agreed, countless creatures would die because of him, and they would definitely take revenge on him. "I see." Xueqi's expression was complicated as he gloomily sighed. Lady Xiaoxian hurriedly grabbed Xueqi's hand and said with a trembling voice, "Xuanji, you can't agree." On the way, she had already understood Xueqi's situation. This was definitely Destiny's scheme. Ran Niming sighed. "You're even more ruthless than me." He suddenly felt quite fearful towards Destiny. Now, Destiny did not fear the heavenly law and did whatever it wanted. Si Mengyan looked at Xueqi and reminded him, "If you agree, the heavenly saints will have a legitimate reason to get rid of you. No matter how powerful you are, you won't be able to defeat all of the heavenly saints working together." Xueqi frowned and remained silent. Xueqi asked Ran Niming, "Is there no other way?" Ran Niming sighed and said, "That is to enter the Yellow Spring source. I now understand that her soul was bound by Destiny's power. Even if we give up on this opportunity, we will encounter the same situation in the future." This was how terrifying Destiny was. It could change everything without anyone knowing. When Destiny toyed with you, it would often be something that you did not expect. Could it be Destiny? Xueqi asked suspiciously. If the stone monkey was Destiny, would it be an opportunity to act now? The stone monkey replied, "I am the will of reincarnation. Destiny is ethereal. You have cultivated to this day. Do you still not understand?" Xueqi and Xueqi rolled their eyes at it. Idiot. It would be devoured by Destiny sooner or later. Ran Niming looked at Xueqi and said, "The choice is right in front of you, and you will have to face it sooner or later. I must tell you that even if you don't choose now, the world will deal with you in the future. They will act against you for various reasons that they hate you. In front of Destiny, there is no justice or reason." Xueqi understood this, but he did not know how many living beings would die. He was fighting for his life, but what about those innocent living beings? What he was most afraid of was that if he really did this, Destiny would force him to choose between Lady Xiaoxian, Jiang Shui, and Zhou Xiaoxian. When that time came, who would he give up on? If he gave up on Lady Xiaoxian, what would his decision be? If he gave up on Jiang Shui, why would he fight? The two of them could just die together. Xueqi, do you really want to harm the world for someone who has already died? Ninth Nether Buddha's voice suddenly sounded out as he appeared in the starry sky to the east of the stone stage. Xueqi waved his right hand and the thunderclap sword shot out, blasting apart Ninth Nether Buddha. His expression was cold and his black hair was somewhat messy. His heart had never been in such chaos before. Son, thank you for your good intentions. Lady Zhao Xian sighed and slowly retreated. Xueqi said coldly, I won't allow your soul to dissipate. You've already abandoned me once. Do you want to do it again? Don't use death as an excuse. If it was me, even if I died, I would think of a way to return to the world of the living to protect my daughter. Lady Zhao Xian felt as if she had been struck by lightning and stood there, her eyes becoming red. She did not feel wronged and was instead filled with regret. She hated herself for staring at the yellow springs in a daze all these years. She hated herself for being useless. Back then, if she had diligently cultivated with Daoya old man, she would not have allowed Xueqi to grow up alone. Xueqi walked over to the stone monkey and took out the great brilliant sky and history asunder sword. He used the great brilliant sky to gather all of the fate in the lotus world, and at the same time, he sent immortal energy into the history asunder sword. A sword that can cut through the river of history. I wonder if you can cut through destiny. Chapter 600. Bang! The sword chi flashed past the stone monkey and rushed into the depths of the starry sky. Xueqi maintained his posture of swinging his sword and looked at the stone monkey quietly. Lady Zhao Xian, Qiu Hu, Xian Daoya, Si Mengyan, and Ran Niming all looked at the stone monkey. Although they did not understand why Xueqi had attacked, they believed that Xueqi was not doing it out of impulse. The stone monkey didn't shatter. Instead, it trembled intensely. Ah! The stone monkey suddenly let out a strange scream. A black shadow flew out from the stone monkey's body and rapidly exploded. Xueqi put down his two swords and asked, What's the price for reviving her? The stone monkey replied in a daze, consuming 10,000 years of lifespan. Everyone's eyes widened in disbelief. Xueqi smiled. As expected of the sword that cut through the river of history, he severed the stone monkey's past, removing the influence that fate had on the stone monkey. The stone monkey naturally returned to normal. Sure. Xueqi stored his swords and waited for the stone monkey to take effect. The stone monkey opened its mouth and a beam of light shot out, shining on Lady Xiaoxuan's body. Immediately after, Lady Xiaoxuan's vitality was restored at a speed visible to the naked eye. Her appearance did not seem to have changed, but she was no longer a soul, but a physical body. Lady Xiaoxian looked at her in surprise. She wanted to say something, but she didn't know what to say. She looked back at Xueqi apologetically. Apart from giving birth to Xueqi, she did not fulfill any of the responsibilities that a mother should have. Xueqi smiled at her and said, Come, let's meet your granddaughter. Lady Xiaoxian was taken aback for a moment before she hurried over. Xueqi waved his right hand and sent her into the world of the 24-rank deep black lotus. He then brought her to Daoya old man, who would arrange for them to meet. Where did this sword come from? Xian Daoya looked at Xueqi fearfully and asked with a trembling voice. Even fate could be severed? Qiu Hu and Si Mengyan also looked at Xueqi in confusion. Only Ran Niming had a smile on his face. Xueqi said calmly, From me. He looked at the stone monkey and asked, How do I inherit the reincarnation force? After getting rid of the influence of fate, it was time for him to look for opportunities for himself. He wanted to become stronger. Strong enough to defeat fate. The stone monkey opened its mouth and spat out a piece of white jade. It flew to Xueqi and said, Swallow it, and you will have the power of reincarnation. Qiu Hu felt disgusted. Ran Niming stepped forward, crushed the white jade and said with a smile, All right, it's about time to go back. The goal of this trip was to revive Lady Xiaoxian. Since he had already done it, he could not allow Xueqi to fall into his trap again. Qiu Hu and the others came over and let out sighs of relief. Go back? Where do you want to go? The stone monkey suddenly let out a shrill cry, causing everyone to retreat. The stone monkey trembled intensely, and a strange blood chi circled around its body. Fate can't be reversed. Otherworldly beings must be eliminated. the stone monkey screamed at the top of its lungs. It was extremely terrifying, causing Xueqi to have goosebumps. "Leave quickly," Ran Niming said in a deep voice. After that, he took the lead to fly off the stone platform. The others followed closely behind, flying down the yellow springs pillar. Soon, they arrived at the netherworld. Xiandaoya heaved a sigh of relief and shouted, "It was too dangerous. Can we not be so rash?" The moment he faced fate, he felt as though his soul was about to leave his body. Xueqi was expressionless, but he was glad in his heart that he still had the History Asunder sword. "Oh no! Everyone be careful!" Ran Niming cried out suddenly. Xueqi looked back instinctively and saw a gigantic shadow descending from the sky. Before he could get a clear look at the black shadow, he was knocked unconscious by the impact. Sometime later, Xueqi gradually regained consciousness. He felt that he was submerged in seawater. He opened his eyes slowly, and a pale face appeared before him. The face had a pair of bloodshot eyes, which was extremely horrifying. He instinctively slashed with his hand like a saber. The ghost escaped quickly and disappeared into the seawater. "Where am I?" Xueqi frowned and looked around blankly. He immediately flew up. Boom! He flew out of the sea, and what entered his eyes was a dark world and a thick fog. The netherworld. So it was the yellow springs below. What's going on? Xueqi tried his best to recall what happened and could only feel a splitting headache. He saw a cliff ahead, which was faintly discernible in the fog. He flew toward that direction. A few breaths later, he stopped suddenly and was shocked. There were two silhouettes on the cliff. One of them was Xiandaoya. He was lifted up high by a sinister shadow and could not make a sound. He could only kick with all his might. Xueqi took out the thunderclap sword straightaway and used ranged sword propelling. Swoosh! The thunderclap sword arrived before the shadow as though it teleported. It pierced through the shadow and disappeared into the horizon. The shadow did not explode but opened its mouth and swallowed Xiandaoya. He turned around and looked at Xueqi, revealing a pair of blood-red eyes. In the dark netherworld, the yellow springs surged. The two looked at each other from a distance. Their eyes met, and Xueqi saw the murderous intent in his eyes. An extremely intense murderous intent. "Who are you?" Xueqi asked with a deep voice. The thunderclap sword returned to his hand. The shadow hunched his back like a beast and said coldly, "Xueqi, you should not exist. Your existence is the greatest stain. You must die." He ferociously leapt up and rushed towards Xueqi. A pair of sky-covering black wings appeared on his back, and they were countless kilometers long. Xueqi used sword Dao rules and slashed out. Boom! The two terrifying powers collided, destroying everything. The yellow springs caved in from the pressure, and massive waves surged out from the edges. Xueqi was sent flying back by the shadow. He used the thunderclap sword to block the shadow's sharp claws. Looking at it from a close distance, he suddenly felt that the shadow's face was somewhat familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere before. He immediately exploded out with his aura and forced the shadow back. He took out all of his swords and used sword sect Immortal Ghost Weep. "How did this thing appear?" Sovereign Xian cried out in terror, sounding as if the sky was going to collapse. Xueqi asked in his heart, "Who is he?" Dao Lord Shention replied, "Overlord Saint." He was also the earliest sage. Xueqi's pupils constricted. He had thought that the other party was formed by destiny, and had never thought that it would be the Overlord Saint. Wait, the Overlord Saint was also expelled by destiny. Could it be? The Shadow Overlord Saint charged over with a roar. He flapped his wings, and countless black raindrops swept toward Xueqi. Xueqi immediately dodged. He could sense that the black raindrops were extremely dangerous and could not be blocked head-on. He quickly flew toward the horizon and communicated with the souls in his heart. The shadow he encountered when he came down from the Yellow Springs was the Overlord Saint? Then why did this guy not kill him before? At this moment, Xueqi's eyes burned with passion. An unimaginable itch made him blink continuously. He could sense a majestic power about to burst out from his eyes. Mobile version of the fastest updated website. Chapter 601. Zhou Xuanji endured the discomfort in his eyes and flew at full speed. Every time an overlord sage caught up to him, he would use Sword Dao Law to send him flying. Why can't we kill this guy? Zhou Xuanji tightly frowned. Facing an overlord saint, he felt helpless. Even the strongest Sword Dao rules and the Thunderclap sword were unable to completely kill an overlord sage. Even if they pierced through the black shadow, it would recover in an extremely short amount of time. He is far from his peak condition. It seems that he suffered some kind of torture and ended up like this. Dao Lord Shen sighed. Back then, the Overlord Saint was so mighty, looking down on all the worlds. Zhou Xuanji was not in the mood to sympathize with the Overlord Saint. He was only thinking about how to destroy this fellow. He wondered how Qiu Hu and the others were. Could they have been eaten by the Overlord Saint like Xian Daoya? At this moment, a figure of light suddenly descended from the dark sky ahead. The silhouette flew over quickly, passing by Zhou Xuanji and charging toward the Overlord Saint. Boom! The two fists collided, and the ground below collapsed. The yellow springs surged, and hurricanes howled in all directions. Zhou Xuanji stopped and looked back with a deep frown. Who was that? The light figure and the Overlord Saint began to fight fiercely. One was light, and the other was dark. Their punches and kicks were extremely fast, and all kinds of divine abilities were unleashed. The scene was extremely spectacular. Zhou Xuanji suddenly felt that the silhouette was somewhat familiar. Soon, his expression changed. It was actually him. This light figure suddenly turned out to be Yang Di. Back then in the northern wilderness region, Yang Di left with the heavenly law stone in order to pursue power. Unexpectedly, he was still alive. Zhou Xuanji quickly understood. Sunlight Emperor represented the way of heaven while Overlord Saint represented destiny. This was a battle between two rules. Is he still him? Zhou Xuanji felt quite curious. The current Yang Di was incredibly powerful and domineering, and he had regained the prestige of being #1 in the northern wilderness. Even in the face of the Overlord Saint, Sunlight Emperor had the upper hand. A figure appeared beside Zhou Xuanji. It was Ran Niming. He looked at the great battle in front of him and said in bewilderment, "The incarnation of the heavenly Tao. Strange, why would he appear here? Is this the netherworld?" Zhou Xuanji glanced at him and asked, "What do you mean? Isn't it the heavenly Tao's doing?" Ran Niming shook his head and said, "The underworld is under the control of reincarnation. The heavenly way has no consciousness and will not forcefully interfere with reincarnation. I'm afraid this guy came here on his own will." Zhou Xuanji was stunned. Was Sunlight Emperor here to save him? He felt a little strange. Thinking about it carefully, he realized that he didn't have a deep friendship with Sunlight Emperor. "Let's leave first." Zhou Xuanji had no objections. He could tell that Sunlight Emperor was stalling for time. After he left, the Overlord Saint would most likely disappear. The two of them quickly left. They did not immediately leave the underworld. Instead, they went to find Qiu Hu and Si Mengyan. As for Xian Daoya, Ran Niming smiled and said, "Don't worry about him. He's just a soul, and he has many tricks up his sleeves. It won't be easy to kill him." Zhou Xuanji nodded lightly and asked, "What's going on? Is the Overlord Sage an arrangement of fate?" Ran Niming said, "That should be the case. The Overlord Sage's mind is no longer clear. Fate might have changed his will, making him hate you. In the future, there will probably be even more experts who will chase after you in a frenzy, because quite a few living beings have been devoured by fate." Zhou Xuanji inwardly sighed. It seemed that destiny had gone crazy. She was desperate to take revenge on him. Damn it! Inside the Lotus World, Jiang Shui, Zhou Shaoxian, Lady Zhao Xian, and Daoya Old Man gathered in a pavilion. Daoya Old Man was so excited that his face turned red. He drank a pot of wine and said excitedly, "Xian, you're finally back. How have you been in the netherworld all these years?" Jiang Shui looked very uneasy. After all, this was Zhou Xuanji's mother. Zhou Shaoxian was not nervous. Instead, she was very curious. Lady Zhao Xian shook her head and smiled. "I felt that only 2 or 3 years had passed down there. It was very magical." She looked at Jiang Shui and said with a smile, "Don't be nervous. I'm very grateful to you. If you didn't take Xuanji in when he was young, I'm afraid we wouldn't have the chance to meet again." Jiang Shui's face blushed when she heard that. She quickly shook her head and said, "That was all a coincidence. Even without me, he would still be able to survive. On the contrary, it was because of his protection that I was able to survive until today." PFFF, Zhou Xiaoxian covered her mouth and giggled, which made Jiang Shui glare at her. Daoya old man laughed along. Lady Zhao Xian began to ask Zhou Xiaoxian and Jiang Shui about all sorts of trivial matters, and the three women quickly became familiar with each other. After a while, Zhou Xiaoxian asked curiously, "Grandma, how did you find me last time?" Lady Zhao Xian sighed and said, "That wasn't me." She told them about Ninth Nether Buddha's scheme, and the three of them opened their eyes wide. The Netherworld Lord had schemed against Zhou Xuanji like this. "How's Xuanji doing now?" Jiang Shui asked anxiously. Daoya old man wanted to divine Zhou Xuanji's condition but was afraid of being devoured. Lady Zhao Xian shook her head and sighed. "I can't help him. I'm ashamed to be a mother." Just when Zhou Xiaoxian was about to speak, she suddenly felt an itch in her eyes. She rubbed them with her hands. The more she rubbed, the more itchy it became. The Netherworld. Zhou Xuanji and Ren Niming found Qiu Hu and Si Mengyan. Both of them were heavily injured. "That guy is the Overlord Saint? He almost killed me." Qiu Hu cursed. Qiu Hu cursed. He was in a bad mood. After all, they were ambushed and not defeated in a direct battle. Of course, if they were to fight head-on, he would not be a match for the Overlord Saint. Si Mengyan looked at Ran Niming and asked, "What do we do next?" Ran Niming had said that he would lead them to kill Heavenly Venerate Xian Tai. However, up until now, they had not done anything against Heavenly Venerate Xian Tai. "I'll return to the Yang realm and hunt down Heavenly Lord Xian Tai." Ran Niming's eyes flickered, and he said in a sonorous voice. Qiu Hu was stunned. Hunting heavenly saints? Was he crazy? Zhou Xuanji narrowed his eyes and said, "You think I can kill saints now?" Ran Niming smiled and said, "Don't worry, I have another way." Having said that, the crowd did not pursue the matter any further and prepared to leave with him. Boom! A beam of light descended from the sky and landed between them. Its powerful aura forced Qiu Hu and Si Mengyan to retreat. It was Sunlight Emperor. His face and posture were the same as before, but his body shone with golden light, like the sun. He looked at Zhou Xuanji and asked, "Zhou Xuanji, who is targeting you?" "Why did you save me?" Zhou Xuanji asked instead. He would feel uncomfortable if he didn't clarify this point. "Back then, in the Northern Wilderness region, you saved the Northern Wilderness region many times. I was useless, and I let the people of the world down. I also owe you my life. Now that I'm helping you, it's to return the favor," Sunlight Emperor replied. His expression was cold, and he was even more silent than before. He gave off the aura of the heavenly law being merciless. Ren Niming looked at him and said profoundly, "You won't have a good ending in your current state. Your will be devoured sooner or later, and you will become a puppet of the heavenly law. It will be the same as dying." Sunlight Emperor was not frightened and remained calm as he said, "That's why I'm helping him. If I'm any later, it will be difficult to return the favor." Chapter 602. What are your plans for the future? Zhou Xuanji asked Sunlight Emperor. No matter what his relationship with Sunlight Emperor was like before, he now felt that Sunlight Emperor was quite pleasing to the eye. Back then, Sunlight Emperor had many chances to kill him, but he failed. It couldn't be said that he underestimated his opponent, it could only be said that he was very arrogant. However, when faced with an undefeatable enemy, he would be a little timid. Sunlight Emperor replied, "You don't have to sympathize with me. I didn't die. I just turned into the way of heaven." He had a proud look on his face. The heavenly Tao was the highest existence. At that time, he would become a truly invincible existence. Zhou Xuanji was silent. Qiu Hu could not help but say, "You don't even have a consciousness. What's the point of becoming the heavenly Tao?" Sunlight Emperor asked back, "What are you spending your whole life for?" Qiu Hu was stunned. He had never thought about this. The reason why he cultivated was because he wanted to be free. Everyone has their own ambitions. There's nothing much to say. Sima Yin shook his head. He did not despise or agree with Sunlight Emperor's decision. After saying that, Sunlight Emperor leaped up and flew above the clouds. Zhou Xuanji and the others entered the void and jumped into the Wanshan Great Thousand. They landed in a wood. Ran Niming said, "You guys wait here first. I'll go make a plan. Don't leave and wait for me to come back." With that he left. Qiu, who sat on the ground and leaned against a tree. He sighed and said, "I can finally rest." Si Mengyan walked to the side and sat down to rest. Zhou Xuanji took out Demon God Tianwu and Demon God Nanming and said, "I'm going back to my magic treasure world to have a look." Then, he entered the 24-rank Deep Black Lotus. As soon as he disappeared, the 24-rank Deep Black Lotus appeared. Qiu Hu and Si Mengyan looked curiously at the 24-rank Deep Black Lotus and praised it in their hearts. Zhou Xuanji quickly found Jiang Shui and the others. At this moment, they were in the house, and the atmosphere was somewhat tense. Zhou Xuanji appeared behind Jiang Shui and saw Zhou Xiaoxian lying on the bed. Her face was covered in cold sweat. He asked, "What's going on?" The moment he spoke, Jiang Shui, Lady Zhao Xian, and Huang Lianxin jumped in fright. He quickly walked to the bedside and examined Zhou Xiaoxian. She said her eyes were itchy, and then she suddenly fainted. Jiang Shui said nervously, which made Zhou Xuanji frown. Itchy eyes? His eyes had been itchy before, but he did not know when it had disappeared. Why did Zhou Xiaoxuan's eyes itch? His eyes had mutated after giving birth to Zhou Xiaoxian. If there was a chain reaction, it should be Xian Xianghua. He used his divine sense to examine Zhou Xiaoxian. He discovered that Zhou Xiaoxuan's eyes contained a terrifying power. It was completely different from his eyes. What's that? Zhou Xuanji frowned even more. He did not know why, but he felt a little uneasy. Because he felt that this power was somewhat familiar. I seem to have seen it somewhere before. He took out the Holy Light Redemption Sword to heal Zhou Xiaoxian. After a while, Zhou Xiaoxian woke up. She opened her eyes and saw Zhou Xuanji. Her gaze was hazy as she muttered, "Father, I had a nightmare. I'm so scared." Zhou Xuanji wiped the cold sweat off her forehead and asked gently, "What nightmare?" "Since it's a nightmare, it must be fake." Seeing Zhou Xiaoxian like this, he suddenly felt sorry for her. It had been a long time since he felt so sorry for her. This girl was always laughing and joking. Just like a boy. He rarely cared about what she was thinking. Unknowingly, he realized that he no longer understood her. "I dreamed that you died. Mother and grand teacher also died. There were corpses everywhere, and only I was left." Zhou Xiaoxuan's eyes turned red as she spoke. She thought of a terrifying possibility, and the more she thought about it, the more terrified she became. The old immortal had said that she had a mysterious power. Adding on the fact that Zhou Xuanji was being targeted by destiny, she could not help but overthink. Jiang Shui and the other two girls' expressions changed. They had also thought of that possibility. Zhou Xuanji looked calm and said with a smile, "Silly girl, your father is so powerful. How could he die? Don't overthink. Even if you want to kill me, you can't do it." Seeing that there was no change in his expression, Zhou Xiaoxuan's uneasy heart calmed down. "My eyes also contain some power, but this power might attract enemies outside of the heavenly law. They are even more terrifying than destiny. But I'm not afraid, so what are you afraid of?" Zhou Xuanji hooked Zhou Xiaoxuan's nose and smiled. Zhou Xiaoxian looked at his violet eyes and smiled. Indeed. No matter how she looked at it, Zhou Xuanji's eyes were more dangerous than hers. Zhou Xuanji got up and said to Jiang Shui, "For the time being, be careful, even in the Lotus world. I still have to deal with Heavenly Lord Xian Tai. If there's any problem with Xiaoxian, just call me. I can sense it." Jiang Shui nodded. She took a step forward and asked with concern, "Are you really okay? If not, you can bring us out of the Heavenly Law's range. Even if death is unknown, we can die together. There's no need to kill each other." Destiny was ethereal. Who knew how it would control them? Jiang Shui did not want to hurt Zhou Xuanji one day. Zhou Xuanji smiled confidently. "Don't worry, it's not to that extent yet." In the demonic world, on a tall mountain that reached the clouds, Xian Xianghua, who was dressed in a black robe, sat on a throne. Her face was veiled, and her posture was frivolous and domineering. Following her gaze, there were countless evil spirits crawling on the ground. They were densely packed together, stretching to the ends of the earth in all directions. The Demon Lord is unparalleled. As high as the heavens. The Demon Lord is unparalleled. As high as the heavens. The Demon Lord is unparalleled. As high as the heavens. Countless demons cried out in unison, and their voices shook the sea of clouds. Xian Xianghua's eyes curved into crescents as she smiled. She had finally reached the pinnacle of power. She began to laugh out loud. Her laughter intertwined with the demons' cries, making the entire demon realm even more horrifying. A long while later, the demons dispersed. Xian Xianghua sat on the throne alone and contemplated as she looked at the demon realm. Suddenly, a silhouette descended from the sky and landed in front of her. It was a middle-aged man dressed in a black robe. He had sharp eyebrows, hawk-like eyes, broad shoulders, and an indifferent expression. I am Yu Xuanzong, a heavenly saint. I will give you an opportunity to become a heavenly saint. Are you willing to do it? The black-robed man spoke with an irrefutable tone. Heavenly saint. Xian Xianghua frowned slightly and got up. What opportunity? She asked softly. It was her first time meeting a heavenly saint. Although she was arrogant, she knew that she was no match for a heavenly saint. Wanshan Great Thousand Sword Emperor Zhou Xuanji has 2 heavenly law violet qi. As the new lord of the demon realm, are you willing to deal with Zhou Xuanji? Yu Xuanzong said slowly. He stared into Xian Xianghua's eyes as though he wanted to see through her thoughts. Xian Xianghua asked with squinted eyes. Zhou Xuanji? I've heard of him. He's so powerful. If I deal with him, won't I be seeking death? Yu Xuanzong flicked his sleeves and turned around. With his back facing Xian Xianghua he said, I have already found many saint contenders. When the time comes, you guys can work together to deal with Zhou Xuanji. Kill Zhou Xuanji first. Then fight for the heavenly law violet qi fairly. Before that, I will think of a way to trap Zhou Xuanji. Chapter 603. Since you are a heavenly saint, you must be more powerful than Zhou Xuanji. Why don't you do it yourself? Xian Xianghua asked, pretending to be hesitant. Yu Xuanzong coldly harumphed and said, Heavenly saints naturally cannot participate in mortal matters, and I should not have interfered in the fight for the heavenly law violet qi. However, Zhou Xuanji is different. He does not belong to the heavenly law, and his background is mysterious. If he becomes a saint, he might destroy the order of the heavenly law. You are not only fighting for opportunities for yourselves but also saving the heavenly law in all beings. Not everyone is qualified to participate. Only the rulers of the realms can participate. He sounded a little impatient. As a heavenly saint, he looked down on all living beings. If it weren't for the fact that this matter was troublesome, he wouldn't have come looking for Xian Xianghua. He had seen the scene of Xian Xianghua commanding the group of devils. In his eyes, this woman was just lucky. She had devoured the demonic realm heart and seized the opportunity when the demonic ancestor was missing. If it was before, it would have been impossible for this woman to see him. Xian Xianghua was still a little hesitant and asked, You know us saint contenders very well. Are you sure we can kill Zhou Xuanji? She was a little puzzled. Shouldn't the heavenly saint be omniscient? Yu Xuanzong did not know about her relationship with Zhou Xuanji. Yu Xuanzong said coldly, Do I need to understand you? If you die, then it means that your fates are fated to end here. Wait for my command. With that, Yu Xianzong disappeared on the spot. He wasn't the real body, just a wisp of consciousness. The same thing happened in other realms. The Wanshan Great Thousand, the demon world, and the demon world were not under his control. Coupled with the recent chaos of fate, Yu Xuanzong was unable to divine the demon world and the Wanshan Great Thousand. He had never thought that Zhou Xuanji and Xian Xianghua would have such a close relationship. He had read up on Zhou Xuanji. He had become the most powerful being in the Wanshan Great Thousand at the age of 300. Such a being should have been cultivating hard. How could the new demon realm lord be his old lover? Although the heavenly saints were powerful, they could not predict everything. If Reverend Dao Jing was here, it would be fine. He could communicate with Reverend Dao Jing. Every heavenly saint had a strong sense of dominance over their own territory and did not allow other heavenly saints to interfere. It was not just Grandmaster Yuxuan, The other heavenly saints did not know about the relationship between Xian Xianghua and Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji, what are you up to this time? Xian Xianghua looked at the dark sky and thought to herself. She was very curious about how powerful Zhou Xuanji was to force the heavenly saint to act. After Zhou Xuanji returned to Wanshan Great Thousand, Ran Niming had not returned yet. He sat on the grass and began to chat with Si Meng Yan. He had wanted to ask about the relationship between Si Meng Yan and Patriarch Hongshi. Si Meng Yan did not hide anything and told Zhou Xuanji about the nurturing opportunities that old ancestor Hongshi had set for Zhou Xuanji. Old ancestor Hongshi's attention to him was no less than how venerable Dao Jing doted on him. After Zhou Xuanji heard about it, he felt quite amazed. It turned out that the heavenly saint, who was in a hurry, thought so highly of him. Unfortunately, old ancestor Hongshi had perished before they could even sit down and have a chat. What a pity! You want to avenge old ancestor Hongshi, but are you sure that it was Heavenly Lord Xiantai who killed him? They've fought before, so it should be hard to tell who's stronger. Zhou Xuanji asked. He remembered that the old immortal said that the heavenly saints were almost immortal because they had the support of the heavenly law. Even if they were both heavenly saints, it would be very difficult for them to kill each other. Under normal circumstances, at least 2 heavenly saints had to work together to kill a saint. Si Mengyan shook his head and said, I can be sure of at least one. Anyway, it was almost certain that Heavenly Lord Xiantai was the murderer. Zhou Xuanji nodded. He was filled with murderous intent toward Heavenly Lord Xiantai too. This guy wanted to kill him, so he had to take revenge. After that, the two chatted for a while more before continuing to cultivate. Ran Niming came back some time later. Zhou Xuanji began traveling between the 2 worlds. He spent most of his time teaching his disciples in the Lotus world. In the blink of an eye, half a year passed. Analyze that the sword owner has reached 362 years old. Gotcha started. Ding! Congratulations! The sword owner obtained 9 extreme, 3 clear Tai Chi sword fusion technique. Zhou Xuanji, who was accompanying Zhou Shaoxian on the mountain, was interrupted by the sword spirit's voice. He squinted his eyes. Finally, another 9 extreme legendary sword came. Soon, the legendary sword's information appeared before his eyes. Sword name, 3 clear Tai Chi sword grade, 9 extreme description. The heavenly law has 3 Qi, which are Yuqing, Shangqing, and Tai Qing. When the 3 Qi combine and fuse into Tai Chi, it can suppress a saint. To use this sword, one needs to be at least connecting heaven level 10. One needs to be at connecting heaven level 10 again. With the Saint Slayer sword, when he reaches connecting heaven level 10, he will be invincible among the heavenly saints. He was in a good mood and began to inherit the sword fusion technique. The sword fusion technique was the standard divine ability that the supreme legendary sword system provided to him. As the name suggested, he could fuse the legendary swords into his body, and he could control the ability to fuse the legendary swords. How many legendary swords he could fuse depended on how much his body could withstand. If he could withstand too many powerful legendary swords, his body would explode, and he would die. Great divine ability! Zhou Xuanji was very happy. This meant that the more legendary swords he had, the more powerful he would be. How could he not be happy? Father, what are you laughing at? Zhou Shaoxian asked as she trained. Ever since her eyes started to itch, her cultivation speed increased tremendously. Her understanding of the sword's way changed too. Sometimes, Zhou Xuanji even suspected that she had obtained a supreme legendary sword system. Of course, her comprehension was only limited to this. She could not conjure many swords out of nowhere. Zhou Xuanji waved his hand and said, It's none of your business. Focus on your training. Zhou Shaoxian curled her lip and continued her training. After learning the sword fusion technique, Zhou Xuanji became more confident in his battle against Heavenly Lord Xiantai. Half a year later, Ren Niming finally returned. After Zhou Xuanji heard about it through his clone, he immediately returned to Wanshan Great Thousand. I have already contacted a heavenly saint. We will work together to deal with Heavenly Lord Xiantai. Ren Niming said with a smile, which made Qiu open his eyes wide. Just how big was this guy's wrist? He can even contact a heavenly saint. Which heavenly saint? Zhou Xuanji asked. Ren Niming replied, Barbarian god Huang Luo. He wanted to take the path of an Overlord Saint. After seeing the outcome of an Overlord Saint, he changed to the path of a Heavenly Saint. He is ranked top 3 among the Heavenly Saints. But in a one-on-one battle, he cannot kill Heavenly Lord Xueqi alone. You will be the one to do it. Your Thunderclap sword contains the Heavenly Law's lightning punishment, which is extremely destructive to Heavenly Saints. However, a battle between Heavenly Saints is extremely dangerous. Before that, we must make your cultivation as powerful as possible. Barbarian God Huang Luo. It was Zhou Xuanji's first time hearing this name. He asked hesitantly, "Will Barbarian God Huang Luo deal with me?" After all, he had 2 Heavenly Law Violet Qi. As for handing over the Heavenly Law Violet Qi, it was impossible. These 2 Heavenly Law Violet Qi were entrusted to him by the Heavenly Saint. There was no reason for him to hand them over unless he was willing. Ran Niming smiled evilly and said, "If he wants to deal with us, we will think of a way to deal with him." Chapter 604. Where are we going now? Xueqi asked, his tone filled with anticipation. If Zhou Xuanji could kill a saint, it would be more and more likely for him to become a saint. If he could defeat destiny one day, Zhou Xuanji would be the most powerful existence under the Heavenly Law. At that time, he would also rise to the heavens along with them. Just thinking about it made him excited. Ran Niming smiled mysteriously and said, "The void." After saying that, he took the lead and soared into the sky, and the others followed closely behind. During the flight, Si Mengyan curiously asked Ran Niming about his relationship with Barbarian God Huang Luo. Ran Niming didn't hide anything. A long time ago, when there were no Heavenly Saints, he had once saved Barbarian God Huang Luo and taught him to become stronger. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he was actually the teacher of Barbarian God Huang Luo, the teacher of Heavenly Saint. But this matter would damage Barbarian God Huang Luo's reputation, so he did not announce it, and Barbarian God Huang Luo did not mention it either. Tesfese, the Heavenly Saint is really stingy. Xueqi shook his head and sighed. He never had much respect for the Heavenly Saints. After all, he was of the same generation as the Heavenly Saints and was even the senior of some of them. Zhou Xuanji asked, "Who is the strongest among the Heavenly Saints?" So far he only knew about the 6 sages. They were Reverend Dao Jing, Old Ancestor Hongshi, Heavenly Lord Xueqi, Buddha Yongling, and Barbarian God Huang Luo. As for the 4 saints, they had yet to appear in his line of sight. It should be Shang Tian Dao. You should know his arrogance just by hearing his name. Ran Niming said without hesitation. Si Mengyan's eyelids twitched as he asked, "Isn't this name taboo?" Ran Niming said meaningfully, "He did at first, but he overcame it." This sentence contained a lot of deep meaning. Could it be that the Shang Tian Dao was so powerful that the Heavenly Dao couldn't restrain it? I hope he doesn't make an enemy out of us. Otherwise, hee. Xueqi said with a smile. He glanced at Zhou Xuanji with an expression that said, "I'll leave it to you." Zhou Xuanji pretended not to see it, and the group quickly flew past the 33rd heaven. Looks like I have to find a chance to release the souls of the powerful beings. Zhou Xuanji thought to himself. He had long since agreed to this, and if something happened to him one day, wouldn't he implicate the souls of these powerhouses? He took out the ancient god sword and communicated with the souls of the great beings. The current situation was that Wanshan Great Thousand was not suitable for reincarnation. This trip to the starry sky could give them a chance. Other than Venerable Xian and Venerable Xiantian, all the other souls were willing to reincarnate. They also understood Zhou Xuanji's situation, and now was not the time to be emotional. Xian Zun was too ashamed to be resurrected. Dao Lord Xiantian felt that following Zhou Xuanji was the greatest serendipity. 3 days later, they arrived at a floating island in the starry sky. The island looked very ordinary, and it did not have dense spiritual qi. Xueqi asked curiously, "What fortuitous encounter can make him stronger?" Ran Niming smiled. Without saying anything, he took the lead and walked into the island. The island was not big, only a few miles in length and width. There were piles of rocks on the island, and not a single plant could be seen. Ran Niming walked to the center of the island and moved a huge rock away, revealing a pitch-black cave entrance. This cave is an independent world, and it contains the Overlord Saint's sacred elixir. Ran Niming said with a smile. He was the first to jump in. The Overlord Saint's Saint Elixir? Zhou Xuanji and the others felt quite curious and jumped in. Passing through the darkness, they came to a fairyland-like world of mountains and rivers. Ran Niming flew to a waterfall and took out a black elixir that was even bigger than him. Qiu Hu and Si Mengyan were shocked. Are you sure you want him to eat it? Si Mengyan swallowed his saliva and asked carefully. He could sense that the sacred elixir contained extremely domineering energy. Even from a distance, it gave them goosebumps. Ran Niming brought the elixir to Zhou Xuanji and the others and smiled. So only he can eat it. You guys don't have the fortune to enjoy it. Zhou Xuanji was expressionless, but he cursed in his heart. What the? Are you trying to stuff me to death? Even though his body had transformed, he still felt that it was too much. Ran Niming said with a smile. Don't worry. This elixir is not meant to be eaten. Place your hand on it and activate your World Buddha art. Zhou Xuanji glanced at him and said, You know a lot. He did not mention the World Buddha art to Ran Niming. Back then, when Gu Tianxia created this energy technique, I gave him some suggestions too. Once you activate this energy technique, I can sense it. Ran Niming chuckled, concealing his fame and achievements. Zhou Xuanji was speechless. Why did he feel that Ran Niming, the old beggar, and the old immortal shared the same persona? It was as though history was created by the three of them. After Ran Niming put down the sacred elixir, Zhou Xuanji placed his hand on it and activated world internalization to absorb the violent energy within the sacred elixir. As he absorbed, he asked, Wasn't the Overlord Saint banished by destiny? How did you find the sacred elixir? Ran Niming shrugged and smiled. I was destiny before, so I can find the source of destiny. Qiu Hu came over and asked, Since that's the case, take us there and destroy fate. Ran Niming glanced at him and shook his head condescendingly, as though he was looking at a fool. Qiu Hu was infuriated but did not know what to say. When you get there, destiny can easily kill you. Don't forget, destiny already has its own consciousness. Ran Niming looked at Zhou Xuanji and said intently. Zhou Xuanji understood what he meant. As long as they were powerful enough, Ran Niming could lead the way and destroy destiny. Before that, they could only work hard to become more powerful. Okay, you guys wait here. I'll go out and gather more information. Ran Niming left quickly. Qiu Hu and Si Mengyan found a place and began cultivating. Occasionally, they would converse with Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji continued to challenge his limits to absorb the energy within the sacred elixir as soon as possible. But the energy within the sacred elixir was too massive, as though it was inexhaustible. He began to enjoy the feeling of becoming more powerful. A year later, he broke through to connecting heaven level 7, and his cultivation soared. Ran Niming finally returned. With a mocking smile he said, We have one more enemy. Grandmaster Yuxuan is interested in your heavenly law violet qi. He's really courting death. Qiu Hu and Si Mengyan walked over immediately and asked what happened. It turned out that Grandmaster Yuxuan had gathered dozens of realm lords from independent realms to attack Zhou Xuanji. You seem to look down on Grandmaster Yuxuan. Zhou Xuanji said with squinted eyes. How powerful was Ran Niming? This guy was destiny too. He might be very powerful already. Grandmaster Yuxuan has always been at a disadvantage among the heavenly saints. He's blindly arrogant and easily envious. We might be able to make use of him, Ran Niming said with a smile. Evidently, he had already come up with a plan to deal with Grandmaster Yuxuan. Their target was still Heavenly Lord Xiantai. Si Mengyan asked, Will Grandmaster Yuxuan ally with Heavenly Lord Xiantai? With another heavenly saint as their enemy, the pressure on them would naturally increase. Ran Niming shook his head and said, He's already bewitched by destiny. He will become a third force. Chapter 605. A third party? Qiu Hu and Si Mengyan looked at each other and felt that this was interesting. This was good as well. With one more **T stirring stick, the pressure on them would also be reduced. Zhou Xuanji did not take Grandmaster Yuxuanzong seriously. He did not even know who his opponent was, and he had no idea how this fellow had become a saint. Hey, are you not going to help us become stronger? Qiu Hu shouted at Ran Niming. His next opponent would be a heavenly saint, and he did not want to be cannon fodder. Si Mengyan also looked at Ran Niming with a burning gaze. Until today, they were completely convinced by Ran Niming. This guy really had a lot of tricks up his sleeves. He could almost be said to be omnipotent. Ran Niming thought for a moment and said, "Then follow me." Following this, he left with Qiu Hu and Si Mengyan. Zhou Xuanji did not stop him and continued to focus on absorbing the Overlord Saint Pellet. While Ran Niming and the other two were gone, he released Emperor Hanlin, Saber Monarch Dong Hai, Emperor Cong Hai, Ghost Emperor Zhang Tian, and Emperor Zhao, allowing them to leave on their own. "I will never forget this favor. Stinking brat. Wait for us to become stronger and come back to help you. Don't die. Take care. Remember, be careful in everything you do. Don't be reckless." The souls of the 5 almighty beings each gave a warning before quickly leaving. Looking at their departing souls, Zhou Xuanji inwardly sighed in amazement. Time passed so quickly. Back then, he still had to rely on the 9 souls, but now he had let them go. They will regret it. I have a premonition that after this tribulation, you will completely transform. At that time, it will be difficult for them to return. Dao Lord Xuantian's voice resounded in Zhou Xuanji's mind. He shook his head with a smile and asked, "Aren't you afraid that I'll drag you down with me?" Dao Master Xiantian snorted. "If you wanted to die, you would have died long ago." His words were filled with trust for Zhou Xuanji. "Death is not scary," Venerable Xian said. The two of them had similar names, and they stayed at the same time. Zhou Xuanji suspected that they were brothers, or perhaps they were the same person, just a split soul. After that, Zhou Xuanji continued to absorb the Saint Pellet while paying attention to the world in the lotus. Years passed by. The sword spirit would remind him of the time on time. Every year, he would send him a godly sword. Occasionally, he would also send him sword techniques and magical treasures. 10 years later, he had reached the 9 levels of connecting heaven and was beginning to break through to the 10 levels of connecting heaven. The further he went, the more energy he needed to break through each level. In these 10 years, Ran Niming had returned once and said that Qiu Hu and Si Mengyan were still cultivating before leaving. On this day, he descended on a 7-colored ray of light, his face full of smiles. He flew behind Zhou Xuanji and said with a smile, "The outside world is in complete chaos. You did not appear for a long time, and Heavenly Lord Xiantai and Barbarian God Huang Luo have already started fighting. More than 100 million creatures from both factions are fighting, and the Wanshan Great Thousand has become a relatively safer place." Zhou Xuanji asked, "Did the Imperial Mystery Sect take any action?" Ran Niming nodded and explained the situation of the Great Thousand World to him. Yu Xuanzong wanted to find Zhou Xuanji, but the Wanshan Great Thousand had been taken over by Heavenly Lord Xiantai. As such, he had no choice but to fight with Heavenly Lord Xiantai. However, Zhou Xuanji had not truly appeared yet, so Yu Xuanzong only provoked Heavenly Lord Xiantai and did not start a full-scale battle. What was worth mentioning was that the Yu Xian sect had gathered the realm masters of dozens of independent worlds, surrounding the Wanshan Great Thousand. Heavenly Lord Xiantai was fighting Barbarian God Huang Luo while guarding against Yu Xianzong at the same time. It was extremely difficult. Unknowingly, the Heavenly Saints had started to fight amongst themselves. Ran Niming said, "The current situation is very beneficial to us. The Heavenly Law's rules have already begun to operate, and destiny cannot be controlled as we wish. As such, we do not need to be anxious and can steadily become stronger." Zhou Xuanji nodded. This was indeed good news. "That's right, your revered teacher is not a creature under the Heavenly Law, right? Recently, he has been nurturing Gu Tianxia and has been active in various battlefields. At the same time, he is also searching for the Heavenly Law Violet Qi to revive Su Qing," Ran Niming said. Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji's eyes narrowed. Gu Tianxia? He did not know whether to laugh or feel bad. Both of them had helped him, but when he was in danger, the old beggar had not been by his side. The next time they met, there would most likely be a gap between them. He shook his head and did not think too much about it. He could not hate the old beggar because of this. Let me remind you, do not give the Heavenly Law Violet Qi to him. Su Qing is not simple, and if he obtains the Heavenly Law Violet Qi and becomes a saint, he will definitely bring disaster to you, Ran Niming said seriously. Ran Niming said solemnly. When he mentioned Su Qing, His gaze was a little strange. Zhou Xuanji asked, "What's wrong with Xueqi?" Ren Niming shook his head and did not speak further. Seeing this, Zhou Xuanji did not bother to ask further. "After you finish absorbing the Saint Pellet, we will depart. We will help you grow stronger in battle until you can challenge destiny." After saying this, Ren Niming left hurriedly. Zhou Xuanji began to look forward to the battles in the future. He could already sense that he had become much more powerful. When he reached connecting heaven level 10, with 3 extreme legendary swords, he would be able to slay gods and Buddhas. 5 years later, Zhou Xuanji reached 378 years old and finally broke through to connecting heaven level 10. His celestial energy grew tremendously, and the Saint Pellet in front of him was only the size of a fist. Just when he broke through, he felt that his body was like magma from the Earth's core. His celestial energy was boiling. More accurately, his magic energy was no longer celestial energy. It was saint energy. The power of an overlord saint. Too powerful. "You are not even 400 years old yet." Dao Lord Shintian cried out in shock in Zhou Xuanji's mind. In order not to be lonely, he put the ancient god sword aside. Sovereign Xian sighed in amazement. "It's hard to imagine how far you will go." Zhou Xuanji smiled but did not reply. After he finished absorbing the remaining Saint Pellet, he would be able to leave this world. He waited patiently with a calm heart. 5 days later, he absorbed the Saint Pellet completely. Because Ren Niming had not returned yet, he could only wait here. He asked the demon god to guard outside while he entered the Lotus world. Half a year later, he came out with Zhou Xiaoxian. "I'm finally out." Zhou Xiaoxian cried out excitedly. This girl wanted to come out every day. The Lotus world was huge, but she felt that it was more interesting outside. Zhou Xuanji sat on a rock by the river and asked, "How are your eyes recently?" He realized that Zhou Xiaoxuan's pupils had turned completely purple, just like him. "It's all right. I don't feel any discomfort usually." Zhou Xiaoxian nodded. Then, she moved closer to Zhou Xuanji and giggled. "Father, can I go and watch when you challenge the heavenly saints?" Her cultivation had grown tremendously and was about to break through to heavenly law true God, so she felt that she was very powerful. Zhou Xuanji threw her a stare and said, "No." Zhou Xiaoxian curled her lip. Just when she was about to speak, the ground shook violently. The father and daughter turned around and saw a black shadow tearing through the space and stepping in like a demon god walking out from the abyss. It was the shadow of the Overlord Saint. Chapter 606. Who is he? Zhou Xiaoxian asked anxiously. She quickly took out her sword. The Overlord Saint's aura was extremely powerful. It was her first time feeling such a powerful aura. Facing the Overlord Saint, she suddenly felt that she was too arrogant. Her father's enemy was so powerful, and she still wanted to join in the fun. "Overlord Saint, the last one banished by destiny," Zhou Xuanji replied calmly. The thunderclap sword appeared in his right hand, and demon god Tianwu and demon god Nanming fused into his body. He took a step forward and shielded Zhou Xiaoxian behind him. "You still want to watch the fun?" he asked with a faint smile. He no longer took the Overlord Saint seriously. If the opponent was a heavenly saint, he would definitely put Zhou Xiaoxian into the 24-rank deep Black Lotus. Zhou Xiaoxian bit her lip lightly and said, "Father, should we run?" She looked at the Overlord Saint in the horizon and realized that the Overlord Saint did not come. It was as though he was waiting for something. "No need. Your father is no longer the same as before," Zhou Xuanji replied. He was also curious why the Overlord Saint did not move. Could there be other enemies? He remembered that Ran Niming said that many powerful cultivators were devoured by destiny. They might have become destiny's puppets to deal with him in the future. Zhou Xuanji tossed out the thunderclap sword and activated ranged sword propelling. Boom! The Overlord Saint was pierced by the thunderclap sword. Heavenly lightning weaved on his body and tore him apart. Zhou Xuanji, who was at connecting heaven level 10, was much more powerful than before. Moreover, he had the power of the Overlord Saint. His power had undergone a qualitative transformation. A full-powered slash was enough to destroy the Overlord Saint's soul. Zhou Xiaoxian opened her eyes wide and cried out in excitement. "Father! You're too powerful. She jumped on the spot and almost threw the sword at Zhou Xuanji. At this moment, a figure walked out from the spatial crack that the Overlord Saint had torn open. This person wore silver armor and a muscular body. He wore a golden helmet with a dragon head and gave off a powerful aura. 18 silver spears floated behind him in the shape of a fan. He turned to look at Zhou Xuanji. His eyes were cold and filled with murderous intent. Who is he? Zhou Shaoxian asked carefully. This person was not simple. She felt that he was more dangerous than the Overlord Saint. I'm not sure, Zhou Xuanji said softly. After that, he put Zhou Shaoxian into the 24-rank Deep Black Lotus. He took out several hundred divine swords and flew up as well. He used sword sect Immortal Ghost Weep and walked toward the silver-armored man. Even though he didn't know who the other party was, the other party's killing intent was clear. Since that was the case, there was no need to ask about his origins. Just kill them. I am the dragon race's war god, Ao Ligang. Zhou Xuanji, hand over the 2 heavenly law violet qi, and I can spare your life, said the silver-armored man. The 18 silver spears on his back suddenly grew taller, reaching a length of 100 zhong. Spear qi soared into the sky, and silver dragons coiled around the spears. Their auras shook the small world so much that it began to collapse. Zhou Xuanji's expression did not change. Such nonsense again. As he moved forward, he asked, "Do you serve the dragons or fate?" Hearing this, Ao Ligang harumphed coldly and said proudly, "I am the ancestor of the dragon race. I control the power of destiny. Even a heavenly saint cannot do anything to me. I am fighting for myself." Control the power of destiny? It was ridiculous. Zhou Xuanji used the sword fusion technique straight away and fused all the legendary swords into his body. Only the Thunderclap sword was left in his hand. As for the Saint Slayer sword and 3 clear Tai Chi sword, he did not dare to take them out. If he fused the 2 9 extreme swords into his body, it would be too much for him to bear. In an instant, he felt a violent power surging out of his body. It was as though the power would explode with a casual swing of his hand. It was an indescribable feeling. Ao Ligang sensed his aura, and his pupils contracted. Such a powerful aura. It shouldn't be, he frowned deeply. He used the power of destiny to locate Zhou Xuanji and tested Zhou Xuanji's power. Although Zhou Xuanji was not bad, he could not be compared to him at all. Zhou Xuanji suddenly used the 10,000 ultimate steps and streaked across the sky like a stream of white light. Ao Ligang backed off immediately, and the 18 silver spears behind him pierced forward. The wind and thunder rumbled. Boom! The sword flashed, and the 18 silver spears were blasted away. Psh. The thunderclap sword pierced into Ao Liagong's chest. He opened his eyes wide in shock. Disbelief was written all over his face. Such speed. Why is it like this? Ao Ligang could not believe his eyes. He was only half a step away from becoming a heavenly saint. And he was pierced by a connecting heaven level 10 cultivator. Zhou Xuanji smiled. He jerked his right hand, and the thunderclap sword shot out billions of lightning bolts, which blasted Ao Liagong's body apart instantly. A dragon's soul appeared on the blade, and he roared with all his might. Roar! The dragon roar pierced through the space and resounded across countless worlds. Even the world within the 24-rank Deep Black Lotus could hear it. The dragon ancestor had fallen, and all worlds trembled. Zhou Xuanji used world internalization to absorb Ao Liagong's magic energy. Ao Ligang was strong-willed and chose to explode his soul straight away. Boom! The powerful radiance from the explosion engulfed Zhou Xuanji's body instantly, and the small world shattered instantly. The floating island outside shattered as well. The horrifying shockwave swept in all directions, destroying numerous asteroids and stars. The Demon Realm. In a palace, Xian Xianghua was entertaining the lords of various worlds. The dragon roar exploded suddenly, and everyone got up in shock. What's going on? This dragon roar. It seems to be Ao Ligang? It can't be. He was someone who almost became a heavenly saint. Who killed the dragon ancestor? The realm lords discussed in fear. They were very familiar with Ao Ligang. How could someone who was almost invincible be killed? Xian Xianghua frowned. As the new realm lord, she did not know about Ao Ligang. she asked. Is it only the heavenly saint who can kill Ao Ligang? The realm lords were silent for a while before nodding. Thinking of the heavenly saint, all the realm lords felt a headache. They gathered this time because they wanted to work together. The heavenly saints were already fighting among themselves, and they did not want to be cannon fodder. This would be an unprecedented catastrophe. Because one heavenly saint had already fallen, and another had left the void. Everyone, the situation is getting more and more dangerous. We must come up with a plan and work together. Otherwise, everyone below the heavenly saint will be ants, and no one will survive. Xian Xianghua knocked on the armrest and said casually. The realm lords turned their attention back to her. The one who died was Ao Ligang. Who would die next? A realm lord reminded, Grandmaster Yuxuan wants us to deal with Zhou Xuanji. We can't refuse. They dared to gather here because Grandmaster Yuxuan was busy fighting with Heavenly Lord Xian Tai. Zhou Xuanji had not appeared for a long time, so Grandmaster Yuxuan ignored them. Of course, we must deal with Zhou Xuanji. But we can propose another plan. Xian Xianghua said with a smile, but she was mocking them in her heart. You want to kill my little Lang Jun? Let's see if I don't kill you. Chapter 607. Zhou Xuanji appeared in the starry sky, his black clothes not damaged at all. Ao Liegong's self-destruction was nothing in his eyes. Disregarding magic power, his physical body could withstand it. He cracked his neck and looked at the vast starry sky. He was considering whether or not he should directly look for Emperor Xian Tai. Previously, when he faced his fate, his heart was heavy. Now, he felt a sense of relief, as if the clouds had parted and he could see the sun. Slaying a saint. He wanted to kill the saint now. He wanted to step on Heavenly Lord Xuantia's corpse, continue to grow stronger, and finally challenge fate. Ran Niming and the other two hadn't returned yet, so he was hesitating whether he should wait or not. He thought about it and decided to go alone. With Ran Niming's ability, he would definitely be able to find him. With that thought, he flew in a certain direction. He didn't know where Heavenly Lord Xiantai was, so he headed to the Abyss Pearl mainland first. The main body of the Abyss Pearl mainland was the Divine Moon, and he planned to liberate the Divine Moon. Back then, the Abyss Pearl mainland had helped him fight the war between the two worlds. Now that he had the ability, he naturally had to help them. At the same time, he would go and take a look at the Great Thousand Worlds under old ancestor Hongshu's control to see if they had encountered any battles between heavenly saints. Not long after he left, Ran Niming arrived. Ao Liegong's aura. He's dead. Ran Niming frowned and muttered to himself. He understood Ao Liegong's strength very well. If it was anyone else who absorbed the sacred elixir, they might be able to defeat Ao Ligang, but it would be too difficult to kill him. It was almost impossible. Zhou Xuanji, what other secrets do you have? Where did your swords come from? Ran Niming mumbled to himself. He did not think too much and began tracking Zhou Xuanji's aura. After killing Ao Ligang, Zhou Xuanji was attacked one after another. The cultivations of these experts were all above connecting heaven level 10. Some were like overlord saints, who had no intelligence. Some were like Ao Ligang, who claimed to have grasped the power of destiny. Zhou Xuanji killed them one by one. At the same time, he lost his way and did not know where the Abyss Pearl mainland was. Strange, these fellows think they control the power of fate, but why don't they know each other? Zhou Xuanji thought to himself as he flew. As for keeping a low profile, he felt that it was impossible. Because each of those guys was crazier than the last. It seemed like there were some unknown secrets behind this. Half a month later, he suddenly stopped and followed his gaze, only to see three figures rushing towards him. They were the old beggar, Gu Tianxia, and Su Qing. Su Qing was still in a deranged state. His body was covered with talismans and was trembling slightly, as if he was trying to restrain his emotions. Seeing Zhou Xuanji, the old beggar was stunned. He did not dodge and quickly came up to Zhou Xuanji. He asked in surprise, "Why are you here?" He thought that Zhou Xuanji was cultivating at the old immortal's place. Gu Tianxia sized up Zhou Xuanji and was astonished in his heart. He could sense that Zhou Xuanji had transformed. What did this kid experience? What a terrifying aura. Su Qing suddenly became irritable, growling non-stop. I want to look for Heavenly Lord Xiantai. Zhou Xuanji replied. He looked at Gu Tianxia and continued, Can you teach me the mental energy technique above level 3 of the world Buddha art? Find Heavenly Lord Xiantai? The old beggar was stunned and felt a little absurd. How long had it been? Zhou Xuanji already had the power to rival heavenly saints? The first 3 levels of the world Buddha art are the quintessence. The 4th and 5th levels that I created are useless. I have already abolished them. If you learn them, you might be putting the cart before the horse. Gu Tianxia said as he shook his head. He was not a petty person. Until now, he had never asked Zhou Xuanji for the Tianxia map. Zhou Xuanji nodded and was about to leave when the old beggar suddenly stopped him. Do you have 2 Heaven's Path Violet Qi? How about letting me have one? The old beggar rubbed his hands and said with a pleading tone. Facing Zhou Xuanji, he was too embarrassed to display his dignity as a revered teacher. Zhou Xuanji stared at him and said, Reviving Xueqi and letting him become a saint might bring harm to the world. Are you sure? The old beggar gritted his teeth and said, When he becomes a saint, I will take him away and never return to the boundless world. Zhou Xuanji frowned and did not know how to reject. Roar! Xueqi roared agitatedly, his voice getting louder and louder like a ferocious demon. Gu Tianxia looked at Xueqi strangely. What's wrong with this guy? The old beggar did not care about Xueqi and begged Zhou Xuanji. My good disciple, I will only beg you this once. Give me one, just one. Roar! Xueqi roared crazily. His voice was like thunder, and the talismans on his body fluttered non-stop. The old beggar hurriedly turned around and suppressed his violence. Su Yang. Xueqi stared at Zhou Xuanji with bloodshot eyes and roared hoarsely. Zhou Xuanji was stunned. Su Yang? Could it be? Su Yang was Xueqi's brother? He was dumbfounded. Was this really true? The old beggar looked back at Zhou Xuanji and said with an awkward smile, He's crazy. You should know that he's obsessed with his little brother. He could not help but sigh at the mention of Su Yang. Su Yang had died countless years ago, and this was something that he did not want to talk about the most. He did not mention it to Zhou Xuanji and Zhou Shaoxian either. Zhou Xuanji said with a strange expression, Su Yang is in my enchanted artifact. He is my grand disciple in this life. Su Yang was Xiao Jinghong's only disciple. Back then, Daoya Old Man said that he was the reincarnation of a powerful cultivator. Until now, he had not awakened. The old beggar heard him and opened his eyes wide. His body trembled as he swallowed his saliva and asked carefully, Is what you said true? Zhou Xuanji nodded and brought Su Yang out from the world in the lotus. When Su Yang appeared and saw the starry sky around him, his body trembled in fear. Just when he was about to cry out, he saw Zhou Xuanji beside him and heaved a sigh of relief. He patted his chest and said bitterly, Grand teacher, why are you looking for me? Why so suddenly? Fortunately, he did not do anything shameful before, or else it would have been awkward. It's really you, the old beggar said with a trembling voice. He moved closer to Su Yang instinctively, and Su Yang hid behind Zhou Xuanji out of fear. At this moment, Xueqi suddenly went crazy and began tearing at the talisman on his body. The old beggar quickly tried to suppress him, but no matter how much magic energy he channeled, Xueqi could not regain his composure. Gu Tianxia tried to help, but it was still useless. Su Yang was frightened by the furious Xueqi, especially his bloodshot eyes, which almost made him pee in his pants. Zhou Xuanji appeared in front of Xueqi out of nowhere. He stretched out his right hand and tapped Xueqi's forehead with his index finger. The power of the Overlord Saint froze Xueqi's body immediately. The old beggar looked at him in shock. How powerful was this brat now? Zhou Xuanji asked. You are so powerful. Did you not divine that Su Yang was under my control? The old beggar could not help but look at Su Yang. His gaze was complicated, filled with surprise and regret. Su Yang was frightened by his gaze. Who was this old man? The 2 brothers were sealed by the heavenly law. I could not divine them at all, the old beggar sighed. He helped the birth of the heavenly law, but the heavenly law took away the person he cared about the most. How ironic. Chapter 608. After the old beggar met Su Yang, he was very excited and kept talking to Su Yang. Yang also found out about his previous life. He did not feel complicated. He was not angry or unwilling, but rather excited. As expected. My background is indeed powerful. Yang gripped his fists, feeling excited as if he was the main character. Xueqi said unpleasantly, "Look at your elder brother's outcome. Do you want to end up like him?" Yang turned to look at Xueqi, and when he met Xueqi's bloodshot eyes, he immediately shuddered. The old beggar said excitedly, "It's okay. As long as you have 2 heavenly law violet qi, you can break free from the heavenly law's seal." Xueqi heard him and narrowed his eyes. Just as expected. The old beggar looked at him and said, "Aren't you walking the path of the Overlord Saint? Can you give me your 2 heavenly law violet qi?" Xueqi was speechless. Even Gu Tianxia shook his head. How could he do that? There was only so much heavenly law violet qi. Why should he give it to his disciple? It would be fine if he gave it to the old beggar, but the old beggar was asking for it on behalf of his other 2 disciples. He was being unreasonable. Yang understood and said with a frown, "Okay. So you were waiting for me here." "Grand Teacher, ignore him. You risked your life to protect these 2 heavenly law violet qi. So what if you're his disciple? He didn't even consider you." Hearing this, the old beggar became anxious. "Stinking brat, what are you talking about? I'm fighting for you too," he said impatiently. Yang glanced at him disdainfully and said, "How do I know you don't have any other intentions towards me? Moreover, only by following Grand Teacher can I be at ease. Even without the heavenly law violet qi, I believe that by following him, I will still become a heavenly saint. After all, Grand Teacher said that his final goal is not to become a heavenly saint." The old beggar was completely speechless. He looked at Xueqi bitterly, using his gaze to ask him what kind of magic potion did you give him? Xueqi said calmly, "I can't give you the heavenly law violet qi. If you want it I can help you take it. After I destroy Heavenly Lord Xiantai, that heavenly law violet qi will belong to you. As for Yang, he's my grand disciple and will follow me in the future." Yang nodded furiously and said, "Hee, I am Emperor Sword Court's eldest senior brother. I cannot leave." He looked around. This was his first time in space, and he was very curious. Xueqi waved his right hand and sent him into the Lotus World. "All right, do you want to follow me to look for Heavenly Lord Xiantai?" Xueqi asked, and the old beggar nodded with gritted teeth, his eyes still filled with resentment. Gu Tianxia hesitated for a while before nodding. He also wanted to know how powerful Xueqi was. The 4 of them immediately flew toward the Abyss Pearl mainland. The old beggar knew the direction of the Abyss Pearl mainland, which saved Xueqi a lot of trouble. On the way, they were very curious about how Xueqi's cultivation had increased so quickly. Xueqi did not hide anything and told him about Ran Niming and the Overlord Saint Pellet. As for the truth that Ran Niming was destiny, he did not mention it. Ran Niming. That kid is really still alive. The old beggar's eyes flickered as he sighed. Shortly after, he told them about his relationship with Ran Niming. Ran Niming was one of the first batch of living beings after the heavenly law was established. He knew the old immortal and the old beggar, but he refused to take them as his teacher and did things his own way. Over the years, they had their own plans and often clashed. Until today, the old beggar could no longer see through Ran Niming. "Be careful of him. Don't think that he's helping you now. He might have other motives," the old beggar reminded. Xueqi nodded with a smile. Gu Tianxia asked, "What's your goal? Heavenly Saint? Or Kunlun Origin Court?" TSK. He even knew about Kunlun Origin Court. Xueqi glanced at the old beggar, and the old beggar felt a little awkward. Xueqi learned about these things from the old immortal. Kunlun Origin Court. Heavenly Saint is not my final destination. I'm not walking the path of a heavenly saint, Xueqi replied. He had to go to Kunlun Origin Court to take a look. Why was he banished by destiny, and where did he come from? Where did the primordial chaos life force that the supreme legendary sword system represented come from? If he could not solve these questions, he would pursue them for the rest of his life. Gu Tianxia nodded. He thought for a while and said, "If you want to leave in the future, can you bring me along?" I will join Emperor Sword Court and serve you. With this, the old beggar opened his eyes wide. Zhou Xuanji was a little surprised too. Why are you going to Kunlun Origin Court? It's very dangerous. Kunlun Origin Court rejects foreign objects. Be careful, or they will kill you. The old beggar said in a frenzy. Why were his disciples so troublesome? Gu Tianxia smiled and said, I always feel that this brat will be amazing in the future, even beyond your expectations. Following him will be exciting. He had witnessed Zhou Xuanji's growth in the Tianxia map. Every time Zhou Xuanji activated the Tianxia map, he could see everything that happened to Zhou Xuanji. Only those who witnessed Zhou Xuanji's growth knew how terrifying his potential was. This was also the reason why Su Yang was so loyal to him. The old beggar fell silent and fell into deep thought. Half a month later, they finally came to the Abyss Pearl mainland. Zhou Xuanji looked down at the Abyss Pearl mainland. He took out the 9-moon execution sword and activated the Divine Moon's power to establish a spiritual connection with the Abyss Pearl mainland. The old beggar and Gu Tianxia did not disturb him. Their eyes were fixed on the 9-moon execution sword. Soon, Zhou Xuanji's consciousness established a connection with the Abyss Pearl mainland. He asked the Abyss Pearl mainland if it wanted to leave this world of suffering. He could help the Divine Moon reincarnate. Although the Divine Moon was a star, it had developed intelligence and was considered a living being. It could reincarnate as long as it had a soul. The Abyss Pearl mainland replied that it did not want to reincarnate. TSK. I didn't expect the Abyss Pearl mainland to be transformed from a divine moon. Hongshi is really good, the old beggar praised. The divine moon was a miraculous existence under the heavenly law. It contained more power than the sun. Zhou Xuanji ignored him, and Gu Tianxia did not reply. After a short conversation, the Abyss Pearl mainland made its choice. It hoped that Zhou Xuanji would accept it. The living beings on the mainland would follow it and form an independent world. The Abyss Pearl mainland glowed with a powerful radiance. At first glance, it seemed to have returned to its divine moon state. The universe heaven cultivators flew out of the Abyss Pearl mainland in fear. Soon, the Abyss Pearl mainland shrunk into a jade bead and flew toward Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji caught it easily. The bead was only the size of a fist, and the Abyss Pearl mainland was hidden within it. He scanned the bead with his divine sense and saw all the living beings on the continent. A ball of flame flew toward the 4 of them. As the flame dissipated, Feng Yuxiu appeared. She looked at Zhou Xuanji with a complicated expression and asked, Why did you take away the Abyss Pearl mainland? She was old ancestor Hongshi's disciple. She knew why old ancestor Hongshi died. Zhou Xuanji waved the jade bead in his hand and said, This is the Abyss Pearl mainland's will. Chapter 609. The Abyss Pearl mainland's own will? Feng Yuxiu felt a bit dazed, and she could not help but think back to when Zhou Xuanji had slaughtered everyone in the Abyss Pearl mainland. At that time, the Abyss Pearl mainland was helping him. What's your plan? Zhou Xuanji changed the subject and asked. He had already found out about the relationship between Feng Yuxiu and old ancestor Hongshi from Si Mengyan. Currently, Feng Yuxiu had no one to rely on. Feng Yuxiu shook her head and said, I'll leave it up to fate. You've taken the Abyss Pearl mainland, so I can only wander about and see if there's a suitable place to establish an abode. The old beggar showed a curious look and looked back and forth between the 2 of them. Gu Tianxia looked in another direction as if he was looking at something indecent. Zhou Xuanji frowned and said, You can continue to cultivate in the Abyss Pearl mainland. I will not disturb you. Feng Yuxiu frowned and hesitated. You can also join my Emperor Sword Court. My disciples and granddisciples are all in one of my treasures, forming their own world. The spiritual qi there is not inferior to that of the Great Thousand World. Zhou Xuanji threw out an olive branch. Feng Yuxiu was a top-tier existence in universe heaven and had great talent. Her achievements would be even greater in the future, and it would not be a loss to bring her into the court. Adding on Qiu Hu, Shiji 6 Immortals, Qiu Boy, and Gu Zhenzun, Emperor Sword Court already had the strength of an overlord-class force. Feng Yuxiu thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. Zhou Xuanji said a few words and sent her into the Lotus World. He asked Daoya Old Man to receive her and arrange a place for her to stay. He especially sent a telepathic message to all the elders of Emperor Sword Court, telling them about Feng Yuxiu's cultivation and background so that no one would anger her. After doing all of this, Zhou Xuanji and the others continued to search for Heavenly Lord Xiantai. Heavenly Lord Xiantai was probably near the Wanshan Great Thousand, and the Zhanggan Great Thousand they were in was not far from the Wanshan Great Thousand. Unlike Wanshan Great Thousand, Zhanggan Great Thousand had already split into dozens of continents. The specific reason for this was probably related to the fall of old ancestor Hongshi. We are looking for Emperor Xiantai. He should be able to sense it, but he hasn't appeared yet. Either he can't free himself, or he's planning something. The old beggar said in a solemn tone. Zhou Xuanji's expression did not change and said, "No matter what he's planning, it's meaningless." The old beggar and Gu Tianxia looked at him deeply. Absolute confidence often came from powerful strength. They also believed that Zhou Xuanji had faced the heavenly saints before and was not blindly arrogant. Among the countless stars, Heavenly Lord Xiantai sat on an asteroid. Many figures floated in the starry sky around him. They were all meditating and cultivating. Heavenly Lord Xiantai opened his eyes and said faintly, "Zhou Xuanji is coming soon. The serendipity is before you. It all depends on your own abilities." As soon as he said that, everyone opened their eyes and powerful auras burst forth. Among them, the weakest cultivation strength was at Universe Heaven Level 7. Apart from listening to Heavenly Master Xuantia's lecture, the most important thing for them to gather here was the Heavenly Tao Purple Essence. Heavenly Lord Xiantai had predicted that Zhou Xuanji would come looking for him, so he had gathered them here. No one was worried that Zhou Xuanji had already become a saint. Anyone who became a saint would definitely cause a Heavenly Tao anomaly, just like when old ancestor Hongshi died. Zhou Xuanji is finally coming. He has 2 strands of Heavenly Law Violet Qi in his hands, yet he still dares to cause trouble for the Heavenly Saints. This kid is truly crazy. Perhaps he doesn't know the way to become a saint. No matter what, I won't dare to cause trouble for the Heavenly Saint. Isn't this helping us? The powerful cultivators discussed among themselves. They were all looking forward to Zhou Xuanji's arrival. A black shadow appeared behind Heavenly Lord Xiantai. At first glance, it looked like his shadow, and it did not move at all. Barbarian god Huang Luo is coming here too. It seems like Ran Niming has already convinced him, the black shadow said softly. The black figure said softly. When Heavenly Lord Xiantai heard this, he couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Send this news to Grandmaster Yuxuan, he instructed. The black shadow disappeared immediately. At the same time, deep in the starry sky, numerous legendary swords flew over rapidly and formed a river of swords. Zhou Xuanji stood on the river of swords, while the old beggar, Gu Tianxia, and Su Qing followed far behind. Aren't we going to support him? Gu Tianxia asked with a frown. He could already sense many powerful auras and the Heavenly Saint's boundless saintly might. The old beggar gritted his teeth and said, "If we go up recklessly, we will only add more trouble to him." His eyes were fixed on Zhou Xuanji. Unknowingly, Zhou Xuanji had become so powerful that he had become a burden. If the 2 brothers are fine, I can focus on nurturing them. Will you be more powerful than you are now? The old beggar looked worried as he thought to himself. He could sense that his relationship with Zhou Xuanji had become estranged. Zhou Xuanji looked ahead and saw Heavenly Lord Xiantai. With a thunderclap sword and 3 clear Tai Chi sword in his hands, his black robe fluttered in the wind. With 2 9 extreme legendary swords in his hands, he had no reason to be afraid. Heavenly Lord Xiantai, you destroyed my Wanshan Great Thousand and slaughtered countless living beings. Aren't you looking for me? Today, we shall settle the score and fight to the death. He cried out coldly. His voice shook the starry sky and alerted all living beings. Swish, the living beings around Heavenly Lord Xiantai all turned around. Seeing Zhou Xuanji, they quickly took out their enchanted artifacts and stood up, charging toward him. There were only 2 Heavenly Law Violet Qi. Whoever was faster would get it. Seeing them charging at him with great momentum, Zhou Xuanji was not afraid. His lips curled up into a mocking smile. 81 sword souls condensed behind him. As he grew more powerful, his understanding of the way of the sword grew tremendously. Especially after realizing the sword Tao rules, His way of the sword had surpassed all sword cultivators in the world. All of you go to hell, Xueqi said coldly, and 81 sword souls slashed out simultaneously. Sword light flashed, and those experts subconsciously used their divine abilities to block it. Boom, 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 one by one, the experts were killed by the sword souls, their souls dispersing. The river of swords beneath Xueqi's feet sped up, and a steady stream of magic energy entered his body through world internalization. Since you're courting death, let me help you. As Xueqi spoke, the Emperor's Wei thousand-hand sword Buddha condensed behind him. It gave off resplendent golden light and was millions of meters tall, and 1,000 swords slashed out simultaneously. Buddha said, "A flower is a world." The Buddha of the sword, one sword to create a world, 1,000 swords to destroy 10,000 worlds. A deafening boom resounded. It was like the Big Bang at the beginning of the universe. Countless stars shattered, and the screams of the experts were drowned out by the explosion. Xueqi used the sword fusion technique amidst the explosion, leaving only the thunderclap sword and 3 clear Tai Chi sword in his hands. Stepping on the corpses, he charged toward Heavenly Lord Xiantai amidst the blinding explosion. At this moment, he was an overlord saint. Pressing forward courageously, even a saint would find it difficult to stop. On the meteorite, Heavenly Lord Xiantai was expressionless, but his heart was filled with shock. Why was this brat so powerful? It didn't make sense. How long had it been? He immediately waved his palm, and a black halo with a diameter of 10,000 meters appeared before the meteorite. With a loud boom, black spheres of light flew out from the black halo like a black hole toward Xueqi. Chapter 6:10. Facing the countless black orbs of light, Xueqi's expression was cold. He slashed with his sword extremely quickly, as though he did not even draw his sword. Sword Dao rules. Slash. Bang. All the black light balls were destroyed, but there was still an endless stream of them. Xueqi leaped up quickly and raised the thunderclap sword. Billions of lightning bolts weaved into a gigantic sword of light and slashed toward Heavenly Lord Xiantai. Heavenly Lord Xiantai raised his right hand, his index finger and middle finger together. Using his finger as a sword, he pointed upwards. He actually managed to block the lightning sword through the air. Xueqi, you are quite powerful, but do you know how powerful a heavenly saint is? Heavenly Lord Xiantai shouted coldly. The voice of a heavenly sage shook one's soul. The powerful cultivators who had not died all dodged and looked at Xueqi in terror and despair. How could he be so strong? That sword just now. We've been tricked. Damn it. How could this be? Stay away from him. What realm is he in? I feel like even saint contenders aren't as strong as him. The powerhouses discussed animatedly. They hated Heavenly Venerable Xiantai to the core. Facing the heavenly saint, they did not dare to curse. They could only bury it in their hearts or vent their anger on Xueqi verbally. Xueqi activated the 9-soul fusion technique and fused the bodies of the 4 demon gods into his body. His aura surged again. He tore through space and arrived behind Heavenly Lord Xiantai in a single step. He waved the 3 clear Taiji sword with his left hand and slashed at Heavenly Lord Xiantai. Heavenly Lord Xiantai revealed a look of disdain. Those who were not sages could not even break his sage might. A layer of white light radiated from his body, isolating Xueqi. Ping! The 3 clear Taiji sword broke through the layer of white light as though it was breaking glass. The blade of the sword then slashed towards Heavenly Lord Xianti's neck. Heavenly Lord Xiantai disappeared, and Xueqi slashed at thin air. He appeared 100 kilometers away and looked at Xueqi in shock. How is this possible? That sword just now. Could it be a sword forged by a heavenly saint? No. The birth of a heavenly sage magical treasure will definitely be earth-shattering. Cold sweat dripped down Heavenly Venerate Xianti's forehead. At this moment, he really felt a sense of crisis. Xueqi could actually injure him. This brat must be eliminated. If this kid was given more time to grow, what would happen? Heavenly Lord Xianti's eyes turned fierce as he took out a black iron whip from his sleeve. With a shake of his right hand, the iron whip quickly grew to hundreds of thousands of feet long, burning with a dark blue flame. He looked at Xueqi furiously and said, "Stinking brat, you dare to offend the might of a heavenly saint." Today, I will show you what it means to be a heavenly saint. He lashed out with his whip, stirring up violent winds and exploding stars in the distance. Xueqi instinctively raised his two swords to block in front of him, and with a loud clang, he was sent flying backward. In that instant, he felt as if his arms were about to shatter. Fresh blood gushed out of his throat incessantly. This level of power. Xueqi's eyes were bloodshot in disbelief. This was the first time he truly fought against a heavenly saint. He did not expect the heavenly saints to be so powerful. Then how terrifying would a true overlord saint be? He gritted his teeth and forcefully steadied himself. The divine power of the 2-9 extreme divine swords poured into his body, causing the surface of his body to glow faintly. His violent aura instantly disappeared. He took a deep breath and leaped up with both swords in his hands. World-suppressing. He drew a perfect arc in the vast starry sky. The thunderclap sword was below him while the 3 clear Tai Chi sword was above him. The 2 divine powers flowed through Xueqi's body and fused together. This aura. It's like a heavenly saint. Heavenly Lord Xueqi frowned tightly. In his eyes, Xueqi's silhouette grew larger and larger. He lashed out with his black whip, destroying everything in its path. Xueqi turned into a stream of white light and clashed with the black whip. The 3 clear Tai Chi sword's blade clashed with the whip. He gritted his teeth and dashed out along the whip. Countless sparks flew. He came up to Heavenly Lord Xueqi swiftly, and heavenly lightning exploded. Boom! A horrifying explosion shook the universe. Spiritual chi surged violently, sweeping up a world-destroying gale. It was majestic and imposing. Far away, the old beggar and Gu Tianxia immediately channeled their magic energy to resist the gale. So powerful! Gu Tianxia opened his eyes wide. He swallowed his saliva and said with a trembling voice. Even though he was so far away, he still felt that his soul was about to dissipate. The old beggar was stunned. He had guessed that Xueqi was powerful, but he felt that it was unbelievable to see Xueqi fight against a heavenly saint. Even in the Kunlun origin court, it was hard to find such a genius. In the powerful radiance, Xueqi danced with both swords and slashed wildly without any pattern. He suppressed Heavenly Lord Xueqi with absolute speed and power. Heavenly Lord Xueqi raised his right palm and blocked Xueqi's attack. Their eyes met, and he saw the rage and murderous intent in Xueqi's eyes. He was a little dazed. This brat wanted to kill him? Killing a saint? What a joke! This was the biggest joke in the world. He was enraged immediately. As a heavenly saint, it had been a long time since he sensed the mortal's murderous intent toward him. Even the powerful cultivators of the Great Thousand World trembled in fear when facing him. They could not harbor any malicious intent but only endless fear. This brat wanted to kill him. Xueqi, I will turn your bones into ashes and consign you to eternal damnation. Heavenly Lord Xueqi roared. A violent black flame burst out and sent Xueqi flying away. His black clothes were burned into ashes in an instant. His skin cracked from the heat, and blood oozed out. Fortunately, he was no longer the same as before. His body's self-healing ability was extremely powerful. He healed quickly and did not turn into bones. He quickly activated the Battle Path Flame Soul. A fiery battle armor materialized on his body, and he turned into a fire god. Brat, can you do it? Sovereign Xian cried out in Xueqi's mind. But his tone was filled with excitement. This kid really made people have a whole new level of respect for him. Xueqi licked the blood at the corner of his lips and said coldly, "The real battle begins now." He immediately used the sword fusion technique and absorbed the 3 clear Tai Chi sword into his body. 9 extreme power. His entire body turned into a white radiance, just like the divine moon state. His aura had reached the same level as Heavenly Lord Xueqi. Impossible! Saint stage. Heavenly Lord Xueqi cried out in disbelief with his eyes wide open. His face turned hideous immediately. He immediately swung his black whip and lashed it at Xueqi. Boom! 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 The black whip bounced off Xueqi's body like a loud bell. A tempest rained down, and the stars exploded. Countless stars could not withstand the saint's might and exploded. It was like a world-shaking firework that covered the entire universe. Zhou Xuanji held the thunderclap sword with one hand and walked toward Heavenly Lord Xiantai. It was his first time fusing the 9 extreme legendary sword into his body. This feeling, omnipotent. The unprecedented power almost made him lose himself. He wanted to vent his anger and destroy everything. He suddenly understood the mentality of the heavenly saints. Before such power, all the schemes of mortals were useless. Today I am the saint, and I will slay destiny in the future. Zhou Xuanji's voice came into Heavenly Lord Xuantie's ears. Heavenly Lord Xiantai was furious because he felt that this brat was provoking him. Chapter 6:11. Heavenly Lord Xiantai took a deep breath, and his skin rapidly turned black like black iron. His entire person seemed to have turned into darkness. With the black whip in hand, he walked toward Zhou Xuanji. At this moment, he and Zhou Xuanji only had eyes for each other. They just wanted to kill each other. Teskezde, Heavenly Lord Xiantai, I didn't expect you to be in such a situation. A wild and domineering laughter resounded through the entire starry sky, and a giant figure that was 1,000,000 feet tall slowly walked out of the darkness. He was bare-chested and wore golden arm guards on his arms. His muscles were well developed, and his lines were like mountain ranges. 2 green dragons coiled around his body, giving him a fiendish appearance. Barbarian god Huang Luo. His face was wild, and his eyes were golden. His black hair fluttered in the wind like a group of black dragons. Upon seeing him, Heavenly Venerate Xuantie's face darkened. Damn it! How did this guy get here so fast? He cursed in his heart, but on the surface, he was very calm. Zhou Xuanji had already displayed the power of the Saint Realm. If he worked together with barbarian god Huang Luo, it would not bode well for him. Zhou Xuanji saw Ran Niming standing on barbarian god Huang Luo's shoulder with an evil smile. This guy is really timely. Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself. He could not help but smile. Barbarian god Huang Luo walked over step by step and said with a hideous smile, Dark Steel. You killed Hongsher. You are a heavenly saint. You should give up your position. There was an agreement between the heavenly sages that they could not attack each other. After all, there was a limit to the number of heavenly saints. As long as they were united, they could be heavenly saints forever and rule over everything under the heavenly law. Heavenly Lord Xiantai and Buddha Yongling worked together to kill old ancestor Hongsher, which was a taboo between heavenly saints. The only existence that heaven saints were afraid of was heaven saints. You make it sound so easy. Berserker god Huang Luo, I might not know what you want to do, but your goal might not be as simple as punishing me. Heavenly Lord Xiantai snorted coldly, his eyes filled with disdain. Barbarian god Huang Luo came close and looked at Zhou Xuanji as he praised. Sword Emperor, you are not bad. He did not directly call Zhou Xuanji by his name and instead called him the Sword Emperor, giving Zhou Xuanji enough face. However, his gaze made Zhou Xuanji very uncomfortable. This fellow was very aggressive, even more dangerous than Heavenly Lord Xiantai. Ran Niming flew to Zhou Xuanji's side and said telepathically, Leave the rest to them. Find an opportunity to seize his saint energy. Zhou Xuanji replied, Will barbarian god Huang Luo allow it? Ran Niming replied, Is it that important whether he allows it or not? Trust me, none of the heavenly saints are good people. They all think for themselves. The reason why he helped you is because with one less heavenly saint, the other heavenly saints will be stronger. The power that the heavenly Tao gives to heavenly saints is fixed. Do you understand? Right now, the 7 heavenly saints are splitting this power equally. Zhou Xuanji came to a realization. This meant that every heavenly saint was fighting in the dark. While they were communicating via voice transmission, barbarian god Huang Luo and heavenly Lord Xiantai were still arguing. At this moment, waves of aura came from another direction. In that direction there was a huge crack in the space, and many figures flew out. The weakest of them were connecting heaven level 2. Behind them, there was an imposing figure. It was Yu Xianzong. Within the crowd, Xian Xianghua immediately saw Zhou Xuanji. Her eyes were filled with splendor, and she was pleasantly surprised. This kid is getting more and more powerful. Back then in her eyes, Zhou Xuanji was just a little kid. Now, even when he stood beside the heavenly saints, his aura did not pale in comparison. She felt proud in her heart. My foresight is so powerful. I fell in love with him when he was still weak. Who else could have such foresight as me? At the same time, she felt fortunate. The man who moved her heart eventually made her admire him and rely on him. Yo, Yu Xuanzong, you are here too. Barbarian god Huang Luo laughed mockingly. The two azure dragons on his shoulders roared as well. Yu Xuanzong snorted with a dark expression. Today, the three of us will decide who is stronger here. Whoever wins can have Zhou Xuanji. Barbarian god Huang Luo and Heavenly Lord Xiantai heard him and laughed. Did this guy think that Zhou Xuanji was a sheep waiting to be slaughtered? Yu Xuanzong looked at Zhou Xuanji and then at Ran Niming. His pupils contracted as he thought to himself, why is this guy here? Could he be Zhou Xuanji's backer? So that's why. No wonder. Yu Xuanzong felt that he had guessed the truth, so he said, Zhou Xuanji, give me one of your heavenly law violet qi. Just one, and I will protect you. How about it? Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji frowned and said, unless you help me kill Heavenly Lord Xiantai. The heavenly saint was indeed a heavenly saint. He was not as stupid as Ran Niming said. Barbarian god Huang Luo laughed loudly and said, don't talk nonsense. If you want to fight, let's fight. The two azure dragons on his body rushed out, one towards Heavenly Lord Xiantai and the other towards Yu Xuanzong. The saint war erupted. Zhou Xuanji also noticed Xian Xianghua's figure, but he did not immediately acknowledge her. Their gazes met, and he understood what she was thinking. He cancelled the sword fusion technique and the 9-soul fusion technique, allowing his body to rest for a while. Using these two divine abilities at the same time took a great toll on his body. The realm lords quickly retreated, distancing themselves from the battle. So powerful. This is a heavenly saint? The might of a saint is indeed very powerful. Even if we work together, we are not a match for a heavenly saint. This is sending us to our deaths. After they finish fighting, we might still have a chance. The realm lords discussed among themselves, while Xian Xianghua's gaze fell on Zhou Xuanji. Far away, the old beggar and Gu Tianxia were watching the battle too. The battle between the heavenly saints forced them further away. Even though they could no longer see the heavenly saints, the shock waves from the battle were enough to make them shudder. Ran Niming, what are you planning? The old beggar mumbled to himself with an unsightly expression. With his understanding of Ran Niming, this guy definitely wanted to destroy the heavenly saints and use Zhou Xuanji as his blade. Will the other heavenly saints get involved? Gu Tianxia asked. The old beggar heard him and frowned. He suddenly felt that Gu Tianxia's guess might be true. If the heavenly saints had a chance to kick a person when he was down, they would not show mercy. Big trouble, the old beggar sighed. He looked ahead and prayed for Zhou Xuanji in his heart. Tianxia. A voice came from behind, and Gu Tianxia felt like he was struck by lightning. He looked back, trembling. The old beggar turned around as well. 7 men wearing the same black robes flew toward them. Their black robes had pictures of different ferocious beasts. They looked hideous and horrifying, as though they would come alive at any moment. The valiant man on the left looked at Gu Tianxia with a complicated expression. Gu Tianxia was extremely excited. You are still alive? He cried out with a trembling voice. Emperor Xia, Gu Tianxia's sworn brother, the ancestor of the humans in the northern wilderness region. Emperor Xia took a deep breath and flew up to him. I have always been alive to revive you, he said, but I did not expect the heavenly saint to be one step ahead of me. This is a good thing. Chapter 6:12. Seeing Emperor Xia and Gu Tianxia chatting excitedly, the old beggar said in amazement, so you're brothers as well. Little boy Xia, do you remember that bastard Mo Jiuqing? Emperor Xia nodded and sighed. Back then, I wanted to go find him, but the great Emperor Dao Court had other plans, so I couldn't show myself. Great Emperor Dao Court. The old beggar and Gu Tianxia looked at the other 6 people. These 6 people were all connecting heaven level 10 existences and gave off powerful auras that were extremely dangerous. Long time no see. I didn't think you'd still be alive. Hee, teacher of heavenly saints. We finally meet. This must be Gu Tianxia. You're not simple. Even our leader often mentions you. I advise you not to interfere in this sacred battle. The heavenly law Violet Qi belongs to the great Emperor Dao court. The 4 people from the great Emperor Dao court spoke, while the other 2 looked at the battle in the distance. Teacher of heavenly saints? Gu Tianxia looked at the old beggar in surprise. In response, the old beggar coldly harumphed and turned his head. Emperor Xia grabbed Gu Tianxia's hand and said profoundly, "Brother, I advise you not to interfere. This battle is a trap, and half of the saints will probably die. With our cultivation, we'll be digging our own graves if we participate." The other 6 people did not stay and flew towards the battlefield. Then why did you all come? Gu Tianxia said with a smile that didn't seem like a smile. He hated the great Emperor Dao court as well. How could he not feel anything about Emperor Xia joining the great Emperor Dao court? It was just that he did not show it. We're not here to participate in the battle. We're just scouts. The true rulers will come through us, Emperor Xia replied honestly. The Xia Emperor replied honestly, an apologetic look in his eyes. Gu Tianxia let go and did not say anything else. The old beggar asked, "Little boy Xia, when did that bastard Mo Jiuqing join the great Emperor Dao court?" Emperor Xia smiled and said, "Earlier than me. He was the one who brought me in." Hearing this, the old beggar became even more displeased and started to curse at Mo Jiuqing. Emperor Xia and Gu Tianxia chatted for a bit more before going to reinforce the great Emperor Dao court. The waters of this battle are quite deep. Who would have thought that fellow would also participate? The old beggar sighed, his tone complicated. Gu Tianxia glanced at him and asked meaningfully, "Which heavenly saint is your disciple?" The old beggar shook his head and didn't want to answer. Boom! 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 The intense light from the explosion illuminated Xueqi and Ran Niming's expressions. Ran Niming squinted his eyes and said, "The great Emperor Dao court is here. This is getting more and more interesting." Xueqi looked over and saw Emperor Xia and the others. He did not recognize any of them, so he did not feel much about them. "How much do you know about the great Emperor Dao court?" Zhao Fu asked Ran Niming. Before, he had hated the great Emperor Dao court, but now his target was fate, and he no longer placed the great Emperor Dao court in his eyes. Ran Niming said in a low voice, "This force is very mysterious. The things they plan are also very strange. Even I can't guess what they want." Xueqi felt that it was strange too. The great Emperor Dao court always seemed to have a strong start but weak finish. For example, they had given up on him before he had risen up. From what Shen Daoya and Qiu Hu had said, it seemed that the great Emperor Dao court did not place much importance on him. If it wasn't for Shen Daoya's desperate request, Qiu Hu would not have acted. Within the Great Thousand Worlds, the legends of the great Emperor Dao court spread far and wide, and many powerful existences took pride in joining the great Emperor Dao court. It seemed that many things had the shadow of the great Emperor Dao court. However, if one looked closely, they would find that the great Emperor Dao court had not obtained anything. It's very likely that there's a heavenly saint standing behind the great Emperor Dao court, and that heavenly saint will most likely come soon. Ran Niming laughed mockingly, as if he was looking forward to the heavenly saint's arrival. Xueqi raised his brow. There was a heavenly saint behind the great Emperor Dao court? It seemed that he had underestimated the great Emperor Dao court's foundation. The battle between barbarian god Huang Luo, heavenly lord Shen Tai, and Grandmaster Yu Xuanzong became more and more intense. The entire starry sky had been turned over to them for battle. As the heavenly sages fought, space collapsed. Space-time electricity wreaked havoc as if dragons and snakes surged into the universe. The 3 heavenly saints fought on their own. Barbarian god Huang Luo was the strongest. He did not rely on any treasures and fought with his physical body. Yu Xuanzong's performance was rather weak. He took out over 100 treasures and displayed his abilities, but he still couldn't gain the upper hand. If this goes on, how long will it take? Xueqi asked. He had already absorbed the magic energy from the battle into his body and did not break through. Above the connecting heaven realm was the saint realm. The gap in between was like an insurmountable chasm. The so-called saint contender was just a title to prove that one was qualified to fight for the position of saint. However, there was still a huge gap between them and the heavenly saint. The heavenly saints did not dare to slaughter all living beings casually because that would increase their negative karma, and the more negative karma they had, the more they would face. especially the more powerful the living being, the more they could not fight personally. This was also the reason why the heavenly saint selection changed. Of course, if they angered the heavenly saint would still kill them. At this moment, Heavenly Lord Xiantai broke free suddenly and charged toward Xueqi. Xueqi reacted quickly. He used the sword fusion technique and 9-soul fusion technique straight away, and a brilliant radiance radiated from his body. With a thunderclap sword in one hand, he blocked in front of Ran Niming and slashed. Sword chi swept out like a crescent moon. It was extremely majestic and was tens of thousands of miles wide. Bum! Heavenly Lord Xiantai broke through the sword chi forcefully and punched toward Xueqi. His fist turned black and extremely tough. It collided with the thunderclap sword and almost knocked Xueqi out of his hand. Next, he flew backward together with Ran Niming. "You must die today!" Heavenly Lord Xiantai cried out furiously. He slammed his right palm downward, and a spatial crack appeared behind him. Countless black chains dashed out and grabbed toward Xueqi. Ding ding ding! Xueqi's limbs were bound by the chains. In the next second, he was pulled toward Heavenly Lord Xiantai. Heavenly Lord Xiantai raised his fists and clasped them together. Black runes appeared around his fists, giving off an extremely horrifying aura. The surrounding space shattered immediately. He stared at Xueqi with a savage expression. Xueqi broke free from the chains with 10,000 ultimate steps and charged toward Heavenly Lord Xiantai. He channeled all the energy in his body, and the 3 pure qi wrapped around his body. Madness could be seen in his purple eyes. Sword Dao rules. A slash tore the starry sky apart. Heavenly Lord Xuantia's fists exploded with 2 beams of black light that contained destructive power. Bum! Powerful black and white lights intertwined, and Xueqi and Heavenly Lord Xuantia's figures were instantly inundated. The beings in the distance were completely dumbfounded. The Sword Emperor can already fight with heavenly saints? God damn it, what are we doing here? With this kind of strength, we won't be able to pick him up even if we want to. So terrifying. How can he be so powerful? Could it be the effect of 2 heavenly law violet qi? Are we still going to continue watching? The beings were sent into an uproar. Their divine sense felt as if it had touched the sun and was burned, making them even more afraid. Chapter 6:13. As the spectators sighed in shock, Xueqi and Heavenly Lord Xiantai rushed out from within the intense light. As they fought, they rushed upwards. Xueqi swung his sword with one hand, and his sword speed reached the level of a saint. It was so fast that it created billions of sword images, which reflected off each other. Heavenly Venerate Xiantai relied on his pair of iron fists to receive the thunderclap sword head-on without suffering any injuries. Is this guy a heavenly saint or an overlord saint? Xueqi inwardly cursed and occasionally slashed out with sword Dao rules, forcing Heavenly Lord Xiantai to dodge. Dao will was an existence that surpassed the heavenly laws. Naturally, it surpassed the power of heavenly saints. However, Xueqi's sword Dao rules was only a very shallow Dao will, but it was enough to injure Heavenly Lord Xiantai. Heavenly Lord Xiantai was also shocked. What kind of divine ability is that? Why is it making my sacred heart tremble? He could not understand, but he felt that Xueqi had too many secrets and had to be killed. With that thought in mind, he increased his holy power in a frenzy, and his aura grew stronger. The 2 of them were like 2 intertwining meteors as they charged upwards. With a boom, they broke through space and arrived in the extremely dark void. Xueqi was still dazzling, while Heavenly Lord Xiantai had fused with the darkness. After entering this void, Heavenly Lord Xuantia's offensive suddenly increased. Xueqi relied on his instincts to defend. He felt that he was surrounded by hundreds of people, and the attacks came from all directions. His purple eyes suddenly lit up. He instantly caught sight of Heavenly Lord Xuantia's figure. This fellow was constantly moving about in the darkness like a ghost. He immediately used the primordial chaos sword shadow. Sword shadows covered his entire body, stacking on top of each other. In the blink of an eye, the surrounding 10,000 miles were filled with sword shadows, forcing Heavenly Lord Xiantai to stay away from him. Humph! Xueqi snorted coldly and immediately closed his eyes. The primordial chaos sword shadows shot toward Heavenly Lord Xiantai. He still remembered the advice of the old immortal, so he did not dare to use the power of his eyes. However, his eyes had already unconsciously displayed their abilities, which made him somewhat vexed. Once he was able to defeat fate, he would definitely use this pair of eyes without any scruples. He would not be afraid of the mysterious enemies outside of the heavenly Tao. Dang! Dang! Clang! Heavenly Lord Xiantai blocked all of the sword shadows with his fists. His eyes locked onto Xueqi, and his pupils turned silver. In an instant, he felt a pair of scorching eyes on him. He subconsciously wanted to dodge, but he was shocked to find that his body couldn't move. Puchi, Heavenly Lord Xuantia's right fist pierced through Xueqi's chest. Everything happened too quickly, and he opened his eyes in shock. Heavenly Lord Xiantai gave a savage smile and said, Xueqi, you still have to die. Don't think that you're the only one with extraordinary eyes. My eyes have already cultivated into a divine ability and can control the eye of life and death. You won't be able to escape. His right arm was ablaze with black flames. The raging flames enveloped Xueqi's body. However, Xueqi did not panic. Instead, he smiled condescendingly. Saint Slayer's sword suddenly appeared above his head. Whoosh! Heavenly Lord Xiantai instinctively dodged, but the Saint Slayer sword still pierced his forehead. Saint blood splattered everywhere. His eyes widened as a look of disbelief appeared on his face. The berserk saint energy flowed into Xueqi's body, almost causing him to explode and die. Under extreme pain, Xueqi burst out laughing. His eyes were cold as he looked at Heavenly Lord Xiantai furiously. You are the first heavenly saint I've killed, and you will not be the last. The Saint Slayer sword turned around and pierced Heavenly Lord Xuantia's chest. After that, Xueqi stored it into the supreme storage. How could this be? Heavenly Lord Xuantia's body trembled. The surface of his body cracked, and a faint radiance shone from his body. It was as though he was about to explode. He could sense that his saint energy was being absorbed at an insane rate. At this moment, Xueqi had turned into a Tao Tai and was devouring his saint energy and will. I can't die in your hands. Impossible. Heavenly Lord Xiantai cried out in despair. His voice grew weaker and weaker. In the vast starry sky, barbarian god Huangluo and Yu Xuanzong were still fighting. Both of them gave their all without holding back. Aren't you worried that Heavenly Lord Xiantai will monopolize the two heavenly law violet qi? Yu Xuanzong roared furiously. He was flustered and exasperated. Although he was questioning, he did not stop his attacks. Barbarian god Huangluo laughed wildly. He wants to defeat the Sword Emperor, but it won't be that easy. The two dragons roared. His attacks were like tidal waves that pressed forward with indomitable will. Far away, Xian Xianghua stood on an asteroid and looked up. The violent wind fluttered her demonic dress. Brat, don't die. She frowned and was worried for Xueqi. His opponent was a heavenly saint after all. Xueqi had not become a heavenly saint yet, so how could he defeat a heavenly saint? At this moment, golden flowers floated down from above, mixed with black sand. Not only in this starry sky, but it was the same for all worlds. The golden flowers fell, and the black sand fell like rain. A heavenly lord had fallen. The spectating beings did not think of this and all became anxious. What's this? Be careful, it might be some kind of divine ability. Do you guys feel a heavenly might? Heavenly saints fight. Do you think there won't be heavenly might? I feel that something is wrong. Barbarian god Huangluo and Yu Xuanzong, who were fighting, stopped at the same time. The two saints were shocked, and their eyes were filled with shock. Heavenly Lord Xiantai had fallen? How could it be? That brat is so powerful? Barbarian god Huangluo thought to himself in shock. He had to re-evaluate Xueqi. Yu Xuanzong gritted his teeth and said, could it be another heavenly saint? Another heavenly saint? Barbarian god Huangluo frowned. He suddenly felt that this was the most likely possibility. Although Xueqi was powerful, it was impossible for him to kill a heavenly saint. Heavenly saints were indestructible and depended on the heavenly law. How could ordinary beings kill them? Far away. Ran Niming looked up in a daze with a complicated look in his eyes. Although he tried his best to nurture Zhou Xuanji and hoped that this brat could slay a heavenly saint, he did not expect him to really do it. Zhou Xuanji, what kind of power did you use? Ran Niming mumbled to himself. Slaying a heavenly saint required the power of the heavenly law, or a power that surpassed the heavenly law. He had lived for so long, but he had never seen a power that surpassed the heavenly saint. Soon, the spectators realized that this was the sign of a heavenly saint falling. Heavenly Lord Xiantai has fallen? Impossible. Could it be the Sword Emperor Zhou Xuanji? Heavens! He's already so powerful? No wonder he dared to come. He's fearless. These powerful cultivators cried out in shock. Xian Xianghua heard their words too. Her body trembled, and her beautiful eyes were filled with surprise and joy. This brat was always the same. He always exceeded everyone's expectations. On the great Emperor Dao courtside, Emperor Xia and the others looked up and were covered in cold sweat. They all knew that Zhou Xuanji was one of the great Emperor Dao court's targets. Seems like we have underestimated him. Who is he? Emperor Xia mumbled to himself with a deep frown. He knew about Zhou Xuanji's hatred toward the great Emperor Dao court. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.